And we are live. Welcome to the Political Orphans. My name is Nico and I am your in-house conservative. On my left, Rob Ambrose, our token lefty, and together we look at what's trending in the news. Our goal is simple. We want to show you that a lefty and a righty can not only get along, but when we don't agree, we're capable of having a conversation like normal human beings. Quite the concept, isn't it? Because remember this, common sense has no political affiliations. What's going on, man?
How's it going, brother? How was your weekend?
Oh, man, it was my my nephew's birthday.
Yep.
He's 5 years old, and I'm the only one that plays with him rough.
Oh, yeah. He must love that, though.
Yeah. What I find interesting, and hopefully his father is not listening to this, but his son doesn't go but his son doesn't go to him. He goes to me to play rough. But I always do. Like, I like this stuff. Like, that's why I'm looking forward to having a boy so that we can actually roughhouse, smack each other around a bit. I'm a martial artist, right? So I believe in pain. I believe that I don't like, he got hurt a few times. Like, he banged himself because they were two boys on me and I was just messing with both of them. And, women are just like, I can see his mother and I'm just like, I will not react to you getting hurt. I can see that it hurt, but I'm continuing. I don't care. Like, suck it up. I don't care. Yep. You don't get tough by, are you going to be okay, poor No, fuck that noise. If it really hurts that much, you're going to stop and I'm going to see it that you really got hurt. But unless you can't move anymore, fuck this noise. We're just playing. So,
yep. I hear you. And, speaking of getting hurt and toughening up, guys, do not check your retirement accounts or your 401k accounts because it ain't looking good. And that is, of course, what we're going to talk about today. Prairie, good morning to you. Hope you had an excellent weekend.
At the same time, guys, I've invested a lot of money over the years especially on ETFs like the SP 500, and it's just going to happen. If you have extra money right now, and I'm not, not listen to me. My advice does not count. You should go check. No. You should go consult with a professional, but all to say that people get rich by buying low, not by selling low, by buying low. So if you have extra money right now, I would invest it. Like, personally, I would invest it. And I got a video. I didn't tell you this, but I got a video from Patrick Bet-David.
Okay.
Which just him on his cell phone, but he talks about one of his buddies a few years ago. And I'm like, this is a message that a lot of people need to hear, because, man, investing your money on the market is not for everyone. Most people should not. Because if you're scared, if you see this and you're like, oh, you're panicking,
like your 5-year-old
might not be for you.
Like your 5-year-old nephew.
It might not be for you.
You're right. It's not for the faint of heart. There's two main emotions in stocks in the markets is fear and greed. And, the famous saying, you want to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. And I agree with you. This is not absolutely not. Do not take our investment advice for just a couple of yahoos. However, I think it is a good place to buy, if only because it's gone down so much. It's so much it's going to be able to go before it goes back up. And I think Trump, and we'll get into it, but I think Trump is, he really cares about things like the stock market. He if it continues like this, he's going to do something, some concession. He'll make some concession to the markets. And you don't need to think he's going to remove all tariffs, because right now the worst case scenario is priced into the market. So if we get news on anything other than worst case scenario, it's going to go up.
The thing, Tony? Too. Hey, what's going on, Tony G? Man, you're messing with my head. Stop moving or stop changing your fucking picture, bro. How the fuck am I supposed to know who you are? I recognize pictures. Oh yeah, I'm like Tony, a child. I recognize pretty pictures. That's it. At the end of the day, you get two different type of people right now, because I've done a lot of research this morning on finance advisors or financial advisors, and if you listen to the news and then you go check what financial advisors are saying, they're two completely different things.
Oh yeah.
And I think you said it well to say that you either panic. You're either scared or you're greedy.
Yep.
And I agree with you. When others are scared, be
You wanna be
greedy.
greedy.
And when other people are greedy, be
scared.
scared.
Yep.
Always go against what the vast majority of people are doing, and that's why
right.
there's less rich people than there are poor people, right?
Yeah. Because it's hard. It is hard to stare that in the face and buy. Vice versa, when stocks are booming and everyone's buying, it's hard to leave the party. But though that's where the great investors are made, like Warren Buffett or Nancy Pelosi. You know.
Okay, not quite, but
Yeah.
I'll agree with Buffett, Nancy Pelosi.
Well,
not so much.
at least by her results. At least by her results, she's the best investor now.
100%.
You know how she got those results. That's an entirely different conversation.
Questionable.
Yeah, but that is actually, I believe, is actually Warren Buffett who said that quote. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. And that is the best investors. That's how they do it. So, you know, it's certainly newsworthy, and that's why we're talking about it. But I think, you know, do not take mine or Nico's advice. Me personally, I might plunk a few dollars down here if I can scram some up. I think it's a good place.
If I had the extra money, I would. And you know, this is one of the things I've learned years and years ago, which is why I'm such a fan of the SP 500 ETF. You can literally, I had my account set up in a way where it would take automatically money on the days I got paid. It would take X number of money. It would invest it in my portfolio, and I would never, unless I'm looking for the SP 500, it will never pop in my feed. I don't talk about it. So it has nothing to do with what I do. So you just invest your money. Like I have some stocks in some old school Bitcoin that are extremely long term. Like I knew when I dumped a few grand on it, it would be very long term, and they do super well. I lost about half of the money over the past week.
Yeah.
but it was never about the short term. I put that money there knowing I won't put more in there, but it was a gamble. Don't fucking invest your money if you're dependent on it to live. That's not, the market is not meant for that, right?
Yep.
And I think that's why people are fearful, because they're just like, oh shit, that's the only money that I have.
If that's how you feel, college education fund. Little Timmy.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe you want to join the army. I don't know if college is going to work out, brother.
Yeah, agreed.
Mitchell Lewis, this is a great comment, actually. Markets overreact to change. You have to give tariffs a while to work and for markets to correct. Crying about the initial pain is like a grapevine crying about being pruned, even though it will produce more in the long run. That's a good point. You know, markets, they hate uncertainty more than anything else, and right now is a time of high uncertainty. But again, you know, right now they've priced in literally everything short of, you know, a global apocalypse. If anything other than the worst case scenario happens, then they will only go up from here. So that's why I think it's probably a solid place to buy. But you're right. At the end of the day, and we're going to talk about it here in a few minutes. I think Trump is clearly trying to do something. Now, whether that's smart or not, you know, we'll get into that. And that's not even, you know, that's above our pay grade. We can maybe say what we think, but nobody really knows at this point. Time will tell. That's the only real indicator at this point.
But I agree with you, and that's why I found this is the longest video we've ever shown. 17 minutes long. It's a long video, but guys, I'm telling you, the guy explains it so fucking well. It blew my mind. When I watched it this morning, I'm like, God damn. Like, he really is somewhere in the middle, and he's kind of explaining the tariffs, how he thinks they were calculated, and what Trump is trying to do. Because the guy, you'll see, he doesn't agree with the tariffs. He's like, they're not what Trump says they are, so they're not reciprocal.
Yep.
He did something completely different. He hasn't explained his calculation, but he was able to calculate and come down to the same results. I'm like, damn. And he can explain every single one on the board, but then he presents a conclusion that if you understand who Trump is and how he's made his money, it's actually very fucking clever. If that's what he's trying to do, God damn, we're not playing the same sport. Him and I are not playing the same sport. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, no, it's very fucking clever. If that's what he's doing, that could literally be one of the most baller move ever in the long run. Obviously, it's long run. We're not talking short term. We're talking medium to long term. But we could see the changes right away, though. If Trump did it for this, damn, man, it's clever if that's what he did. So
yeah, I'm curious to see that. But yeah, like any like essentially what he's trying to do is structurally change the market, and anytime you do that, there's going to be some major short-term pain for sure. At the same time, it also prevents an opportunity for people to get in, right? The stock market maybe a month ago or even 2 weeks ago might probably looked a bit overpriced, and getting in was obviously not the best call. But now, you know, what you got, you get everything that you could get 2 weeks ago, but at a 15% discount. And so I think
you'll see. I don't think you understand what he's playing, because this is not why. If the guy is right, and I can only assume that he's right.
Okay.
It'll blow your mind. What he's doing is so fucking clever. If that's true, cool. His assumption, his conclusion is very clever. Cheryl, by the way, this is strange because I'm on the stream right now and there's people watching. So
Cheryl does say hi, Rob and Nico. I was trying to tune in on Rumble, but the live stream is not working there. So it is working on your end, eh? Or you can.
Yeah, I'm looking. I always monitor them, so I'm looking at it right now. There's people watching it. So, but cool, Cheryl, if on YouTube, make sure to follow, make sure to like, make sure to comment there, because this is good for us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Plus, for once, I won't fuck up your name.
We can see it.
So it's a win-win solution for everyone. At least for us, it's a win-win solution. And you know, that's a reminder for all the people watching right now. If you like this show, make sure to like, make sure to comment. We want to hear from you.
Yep.
But even better if you share it, especially if you're on X right now, share it, restream it. It's super easy. It's right at the top of that little window, like somewhere around there. You just have to reshare it, put it there, and it helps us out. So we appreciate the love. We appreciate you being here. And, you know, let me ask you the question of the day. Do you think that Trump did it on purpose, that the tariffs that he's putting on other countries are meant to crash the market? Did he do it on purpose, or is it just something that happened?
And also, I'll add on a secondary question. Any of our listeners out there who are being personally affected by this? Anyone? I know, like, you know, most people who have any type. Yeah, if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool. Most people who have any type of retirement account, probably best not to look at it today. But yeah, I mean, what goes down generally goes up. At least that's that is the pattern of the stock market for the last 100+ years. So, you know, maybe this is the one time it doesn't. But if you go by past history, it always does come back up. It's funny. I'm looking at the X stream on my X account. Guy, it didn't show up here, but a guy named Monroe Sycophus commented "Orange Monday" underneath. I thought that was funny because we were talking about that before the show. You're like, oh yeah, it's like some. Even though they're libs, you're clever. Like, I like that name. It's a clever name.
And people are, but you remember why, right? It's the not only because they call him the Orange Man, but do you remember the show Orange is the New Black?
Yep.
Those were the references, I think. At least, maybe I tend to look too much into things, so maybe I thought that's what it was. But so yeah, that's a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think this was done on purpose or not? And
well, I mean, I'd like to see this video like you're going to play, to be honest. Yeah. Before I guess I fully.
Before I do, let me play an old school video. And of course, I chose a CNN one because CNN is one of the CNN always tends to forget that they created a shit ton of content, and I can track it back and see how hypocrites they are. But if you look anything from CNN today, it's panic, the world's ending, Jesus is coming tomorrow, and Satan's probably around us already, right? They tend to, but yet they made a video 4 years ago going back to 1987. So the video I'm going to show is not from today. It's from about 4 years ago. And it just explains 1987 because everybody, as you said, like I'm calling it Black Friday because everybody's referencing the single biggest drop of the Dow in one single day was 22.1% from memory. Yep. But I found a super short video that just explains it from the CNN perspective, which is very different from what they're selling today. I'm just saying. So watch this video, super short, it's like a minute and a half, but great way to put it into context.
1987, a day that would come to be known as Black Monday. The Dow plunged 22.6%. It had never happened before, it's still the biggest one-day percentage loss of all time. That means bigger than the 1929 stock market crash, or when trading reopened after the September 11th attacks, or during the financial crisis that almost wiped out the global economy. Here's how CNN reported Black Monday at the time.
Good evening. The stock market today crashed. The Dow Jones Industrials, every other major index, breaking records in its plummet downward.
Yep, it was a crash, pure and simple, and it was blamed on a number of factors. Heightened hostilities in the Persian Gulf, fear of higher interest rates, a 5-year bull market without a significant correction at all, and program trading. But really, the word you heard over and over again,
this is a panic.
People were panicking.
This nosedive was pure investor panic.
Well, panic is the only way to describe what happened on Wall Street today.
panic. That's a big part of what separates a crash from just a really bad day on Wall Street. When emotion takes over, when trading is no longer calm or orderly, that's when Black Mondays are born. So could it happen again? A panic is always theoretically possible, but a 22% decline on the Dow, that's less likely because of circuit breakers. First implemented after the Black Monday freefall, circuit breakers kick in to halt trading when stocks dive too far too fast. Think of it as a trading timeout designed to give investors a chance to calm down. In other words, to interrupt a panic and maybe to prevent another Black Monday. October.
Yeah, nice context.
I just found it very interesting that they're saying, basically what they're saying is that the reason it happened is people panic. So they're basically saying that the market is based on people's emotions. And if people panic, the market crashes. This is basically what they're saying. And also there were protection added in order to prevent
Because of that, yeah.
another 22% drop in one single day. Yet I invite anybody that's listening to this, go see left-leaning media right now and what they're saying about the crash. I find it funny because it seems like they forgot the type of content that they've put out there. And this was a good video. Like, although it's CNN,
Yep.
Great way, great explain, but they basically put it down to fear. And that's all we're hearing, right? It's fear, 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 fear. Yet, is that really what they're selling right now? Or are they blaming Trump on everything? This is what I find very funny.
Well, and just to put in perspective, I'm just looking at right now as we speak, the Dow is down 2.09%. So, I mean, yes, that's a lot. However, compared to 22% in one day, it really isn't. It really isn't, in the same league nearly as Black Monday. And Black Monday, she like she said, they had some reasons, but the fact is there wasn't a clear reason. Nobody really knew exactly. And that's where the fear came in. That's where the panic kicked in. At the same time, if you bought stocks on Black Monday at 3 p.m., an hour before the market closed, you made a fucking pile because that came back the very next day. That came back like it was immediate. So yeah, you were making a pile. But think how, I look at Tony's comments here. I wish I had the balls to invest, so I don't have the knowledge to gamble. Money is way too hard to come by. And first and foremost,
SP 500 ETF, SP 500. Go check Vanguard. Don't listen to me. My advice is not. I am not an investor.
That's not what we do.
But Vanguard ETF, SP 500. Don't worry about it. If there's one stock that can do well, it's that one.
Yeah, and you're in some ways, in a lot of ways, you're coming from it at the right angle. Like I think it's always good to be risk averse when approaching stocks, but that's what it's very hard. It's very hard to look at down 5%, down 2%, especially down 22%, and be like, now's the time to buy. But that is when great investors are made. But also, certainly don't put anything you can't afford to lose or that you're going to need tomorrow or next week. Don't put rent money in there. Don't put mortgage money in there. But if you have something you can not do with for 6 months or a year, me personally, I would probably put a few dollars in there. Not saying you do anything, but that's just my take on it. And Tony says 10-4, good buddy.
He didn't say good buddy. You fucking
no. I added that. For a little bit of flair.
I appreciate it, but he didn't say that.
A little bit of flair. 10-4, good buddy. let's take this comment from Mitchell. Tariffs also have historical precedents. They're simpler and more honest on several fronts. The way our stock market works is unprecedented in every way and inexplicable to most people, while only really benefiting a few work-averse money addicts. To lots of Republicans, it's just a casino with extra steps. Many avoid the market because of this while focusing their funds on business ventures and physical assets that require a bit more work. Many are shocked when they see what kind of, and they cut you off. But so far, everything you said, yeah, I agree with you. I think there's certainly an idea that it is a casino. And I think it's hard, it's hard not to come to that conclusion that it's a bit rigged, right? The people with the knowledge, the people who are really making the money, they have knowledge that me or you just don't have.
Nancy Pelosi.
Well, it's actually a perfect example. And, you could guess right and get lucky, but essentially that's what a casino is. You can go out and pull a slot and get rich if you get lucky, but that's what most people think investing. That is not what they're thinking. They're thinking like, I want to be able to do the research, make a sound investment. And I agree that a lot of people don't feel that way about stocks right now. And so they do put their money in other assets, whether that might be gold or real estate or, starting their own business. And maybe, if the end result is people, I agree with your sentiment that a lot of the fat cats, if you want to call them that, a lot of the 1%, the CEOs, they've essentially been riding a gravy train for a very long time. And it's funny because both sides, left and right, agree that this is happening. They agree it needs to stop. But it also seems like a lot of people don't want to deal with the short-term pain in order to make a change, make it stop. And I'm not even necessarily endorsing what's going on here. But I'm saying that is, I think, the angle some people are staying from. But it's funny seeing the backlash today because a lot of them are Republicans. A lot of them are people that are Trump supporters even. Hedge fund managers, capitalists like Bill Ackman, who was a very vocal Trump supporter, but they're kind of like, oh shit, I'm MAGA, but not like this. And so we'll see. But I mean, I think last I heard, Trump's still saying, nope, steady as she goes. He's staying the course.
Just I was looking at my library behind me, and Tony, I suggest you read. There's a couple of books depending on how deep you want to go into, but there's a book by a guy called Ramit Sethi. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. The title is kind of tacky, but great book. And he kind of shows you how to put your finance together, like how to fix your finances, automate everything. And then it's a 6 weeks program. And then at the end, he shows you what to invest. You can check this out. This one's good too. Economics in One Lesson. It's a professor in economy called Eric Aslit. And of course, if you have a lot of time on your hand, because this shit is thick.
Whoa.
But The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. This is like a classic. I'm pretty sure
Ben Graham is
he's like
the prophet of modern market theorists.
Yeah, you're talking on the same caliber as a Warren Buffett.
Oh, easy.
So,
well, Ben Graham was actually one of Warren Buffett's idols, one of his mentors, I believe.
But you look at this shit. This shit is it must be at least 500. Yeah, it's 600 pages long, and it's not the most passionate. Like it's not passionate. It's not a fucking storytelling book where you're gonna
very dry.
It's meant for you to understand the market. But so where do you want to start? Because I got a couple of videos. Well, I got at least 3. I think you have a couple too you wanted to show. So where do you want to start with this?
Okay, well let me jump in on I'll get to mine first, just because it's not very it's actually not very. It's just a tweet that Bill Ackman put out, and it'll just take us a few minutes. So I will, let's see here, share my screen. Bill Ackman. All right. So if you guys can see this, so Bill Ackman, and it's even a fairly long tweet, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but Bill Ackman is a Trump supporter, and I think the reason I picked this one, I believe he speaks for a lot of the Wall Street supporters, the investors who are spooked. There's no doubt they're a bit spooked right now. These are guys who own stocks for the most part, and they're getting hammered today. Now, So he says this country is 100% behind the president on fixing a global system of tariffs has disadvantaged the country. So he's basically agreeing that with, we've used the phrase before, we might agree on the diagnosis, but disagree on the prescription. And I think what he's essentially doing is agreeing with the diagnosis of President Trump. He's saying America has been taken advantage of, and it's good. It's, so far so good. It's good to recognize that. Here's where the meat of what he gets to. But by placing massive and disproportionate tariffs on our friends and our enemies alike, and thereby launching a global economic war against the whole world at once, we are in the process of destroying confidence in our country as a trading partner, as a place to do business, and as a market to invest capital. The president has an opportunity to call a 90-day timeout, negotiate and resolve unfair asymmetric tariff deals, and induce trillions of dollars of new investment in our country. So essentially, as I scroll down, it's essentially the rest is just agreeing with that main point. I just brought that up because I think he speaks for the most part as far as a lot of the business class, the Wall Street guys. And that doesn't mean, the Wall Street guys, and kind of like I think it was Tony that used that analogy of the vineyard who's about to be pruned. If you listen to the vineyard, you would never prune it, and that actually would harm the yields of the vineyard. So in some ways, Bill Ackman represents the grapes here, the vineyard itself, who's saying, no, don't prune us. Now, I think we have to pay attention to what they're saying. I don't think just because they're upset, I don't think we need to necessarily listen to them, but it's an interesting perspective. It'll be interesting to follow that.
You want to take those two last videos? Hold on. Prairie did say something about speaking of Satan. Anyone see that soccer match in Germany where the stadium chanted for Lucifer?
I didn't see that.
I've made so many videos about this on my Instagram account of artists. Like, just look at a girl called Bambi Thug during the Eurovision last competition, the biggest music video, biggest music competition in the world,
witch, right?
And she's a self-proclaimed witch praising Satan in front of millions of people. Look at Madonna's new show. She praises Satan during the, like, it's left, right, and center. It's everywhere. Like Sam Harris. What wasn't it Sam Harris that now always comes out dressed as Satan? Like, it's insane. It's
Sam Smith.
Sorry.
The fat guy.
He didn't used to be fat though.
No, I think he got fat, and then he was like, "Well, I gotta go by queer or non-binary because I gotta keep people."
I'm fat and I don't want to lose my weight. I mean,
exactly what.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, yeah. Of course it is.
This way, you can't criticize them, right? Because then you're being queer phobic. Fucking idiots.
Obviously, no, but obviously,
of course.
So there's a couple of things. So there's the video I have is long. I'm telling you, but it is fucking Prairie's bang on too, saying look at what we've seen in the Olympics. That's true. If you but did you see the presentation? Like, did you see the opening act?
I did, yeah. And it was,
if you're Christian, you're looking at this, you're like,
the whole thing was ridiculous. I thought it was terrible and poor taste. I just thought it was an embarrassment for France.
Fat Jesus actually Jesus actually posted about it as a story, but she took it down, but somebody was able to get a print screen in, and she makes fun of it, saying, yep, I was playing Jesus and this was indeed a copy, like we were mocking the Last Supper of the apostles. So no, but all France went back, no, that was a Greek god, blah blah blah.
No, man. No.
And like, if you're gonna do it, it's fine, you're allowed to.
Just
I'm
own
not
it.
against people making fun of religion. Go for it, even if I disagree with you, but don't be a bitch. If you get caught, admit it. You got caught, you fucked up, or take it. But one thing's for sure, they would never do that about Muhammad.
No,
let's be honest here.
That's what really bothers me, right? You know they wouldn't. You know that they wouldn't. So why? Like, France is still, in theory, a Christian nation. Like, it was founded on, Christian values, and I'm not, I'm not a Christian, and yet it all just smells like bullshit to me. I don't like that at all. If you're like you said, if you're gonna do it to everybody. Because if it's just one, then it sort of feels like you're trying to push an agenda. You're trying to push a narrative.
Yep. So it seems that you were right, by the way. Mitch Lewis was saying good buddy is implied with 10-4. And then Tony said, Roger that.
Rubber ducky.
Rubber ducky, appreciate the advice. I've never been called a rubber ducky before, but okay. Funny enough, we went shopping this weekend. Like we have a, how'd you call it? Registry for the baby shower. You know, women do that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, look, rubber duckies. I haven't seen that in years. And she's you can't buy that, they mold. So basically, if I get this correctly, Tony G, I'm molding. Is that what
that's
you're
right?
trying to say?
I didn't know that.
Or I'm full of shit. Yeah, you just can't see it. So you want to go for a long video?
Yeah,
like I'm telling you, this video is the bomb, man. The video is the bomb.
Yep.
Let me put that in. I'm telling you guys, this is the longest.
And we'll pause
video
it,
I've
obviously.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it is solid. Like the name of the guy is Andre Jix. He says it at the beginning. JIKS. Massive following on YouTube. Jix. But let's get it started. I'm telling you, like video, beautifully made. Beautifully.
Cool.
Production value is really high.
Known as Liberation Day, President Donald Trump just dropped a bomb.
Carnage on Wall Street.
Markets falling, tumbling.
Stocks plunging. Down. The NASDAQ's getting crushed. Small caps are getting crushed.
This is a shock to the system.
It is ugly out there. Worse than worst case scenario.
Stocks are getting slashed and burned. $2.5 trillion vaporized.
It is estimated that the average American family will pay more than $5,000 out of their pocket to pay for these tariffs.
Economic tariffs on the entire world. The U.S. officially launched one of the most aggressive trade policies in modern history, putting a 10% tariff on all imports across the board. China got hit with 34%, Vietnam 46%. Even the European Union is facing a 20% tariff. Now the message is clear. America wants to bring production home, secure its supply chains, and assert its dominance. Now the people who support this say, this is needed to protect national security and rebuild American industries. But critics argue that we should get ready to pay higher prices, trade wars, and global economic fallout. But there might also be a twist ending to this story. Now, these tariffs could be deflationary, and they could cause the U.S. economy to slow down enough to force the Fed to lower interest rates and rescue the economy, which would allow the U.S. to refinance its debt and send the markets to the moon. Now, all of this sounds kind of crazy. There's a lot of fear and confusion out there, and I want to help explain how this will reshape everything from your portfolio to the future of the global monetary system. So here's what's going on and how this will affect you. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick.
So before we go, see, the production value is great. Like
great.
The guy, the video, the guy, I don't know this guy, but I really fucking like him. He's great.
Yeah. That's high quality.
But if you guys understood what he just said, he's going to talk about the tariffs, how he believes they were calculated, because they don't make sense to anybody right now. He's going to talk about the reciprocal tariffs. Is that what's happening right now, or is it something else? Then he's going to present his what he believes the conclusion is to allow the market, by crashing the market, he will force the hand of the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rate so that it will allow people to start having more more confidence in the market again, because that's always what they do, right? As soon as you start seeing the interest rate goes down, people tend to get more loan. But you'll see he's going to go into detail. Do you know that right now the US is paying more than $1 trillion just in interest?
Yeah.
Imagine if you could somehow have the feds drop the interest rate on your debt and you refinance the debt. This is basically what he's going to explain in the long run, but the video is like amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's I'd seen a few people talking about it on Twitter, but this is definitely going to be a much more in depth thing than I've said. But yeah, as I understand it, it's as you just said. I think there's a lot of sovereign debt that the United States has that's coming up due very soon, and they can either they're gonna have to refinance it, and being able to refinance it at lower interest rates, like yes, it might only be a quarter of a point or a half a point lower, but when you're talking $20 trillion, that's worth a whole lot of fucking money. And so it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting. Like if that is the plan, it's a very complex maneuver, and there's risk in it for sure. Because as he said, we don't even know if these tariffs are going to be inflationary, deflationary. We're sort of in no man's land here. But if that is what they're doing and it works out, it will obviously be a great move. And if it doesn't, then they're going to have to eat some humble pie. But we'll see.
I got another video after this. Somebody, Patrick Bet-David, says something very similar to the last part of what you said. Like it's a big gamble. It's a big gamble, but there could be consequences to this, and you'll see. Can you do me a favor and go reshare your feed on the X account of the Political Orphans?
Oh, is it not showing up there?
No. So I'll just play the video in the back if you don't mind, and if you don't mind doing this, I don't have access to it on my laptop.
Yep, I'll do that.
Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the global reset. So we're back to tariffs again. So let me start by explaining what just happened, why it happened, the criticism for all of it, because there's a lot of good reasons to criticize it. And then I want to look at some of the theories of what could happen in the future. So first, here's what just happened. As of the day after the announcement of Liberation Day and all the tariffs were announced, the stock market was down about 10% from its peak, which is known as a correction. Now, this is interesting because just a couple of weeks ago, the story was the complete opposite. Markets were really excited and they were hoping for an economic soft landing, meaning people were hoping the economy would not go into a recession, but now it looks like we just might. And it's not just stocks. There's all kinds of stress in the system right now, including the credit markets, corporate bond spreads widening, currency fluctuations for trade-sensitive economies. For example, currencies of export-driven countries like the Mexican peso, the Canadian dollar, and the Chinese yuan weakened because they're expecting things to get a lot worse. That's because whatever the US does, it's going to be felt by the entire world. So right now, Wall Street's response is fear. There's layoff announcements that have started trickling in from companies hit by higher import costs. Business groups are spending a ton of money to get some kind of an exemption or to make Mr. Trump roll back the policy completely. But no one knows where all of this is going. And when the stock market doesn't know and there's uncertainty, it can't predict the future. So it becomes a roller coaster. So
this goes back to what CNN was saying earlier. Like basically what he just said is what's going on right now is out of fear because Trump is so unpredictable. We have no fucking clue what he's going to do. Like, I think we can both agree, as we've been covering him basically every day for the past 2 months, we got no fucking clue where that guy's going. We don't know what he's doing. And that's pretty much, if you remember correctly, that's why I wanted to show the 1987 Black Friday video. That's what caused 1987's Black Monday, is the fact that you had panic, people were fearful. So obviously Trump is responsible for what's going on right now. I don't think anybody in their right mind could say that the tariffs are not responsible for what's going on right now. It's a matter of knowing, is it done on purpose? Or is it just, see, this is the thing. This is the point of the video. Nowhere am I debating that Trump is doing this. It's his fault if the market is crashing. Obviously, right? Obviously.
Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, that's how
Let's be real here.
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
Yeah, that's how leadership works, right? If you get the credit when things are good, and you got to take the blame when things are bad. And you know, it is what it is. But he's taking the gamble, and I mean, you know, at least he's doing something, and he's taking the gamble, and he's gonna get the praise if it goes right, and he's gonna eat the shit if it goes wrong.
And like we've said before, if one thing you have to agree with Trump is that he moves the needle. nothing stays the same around him. There's no status quo.
Yeah.
with Trump. If there's one thing he's good at is fucking killing that status quo.
That's right. That's right. He's definitely making waves, right? You like him, love him or hate him, but he's making waves for sure.
That's what's happening. But the next question is, why is it happening? And this all happened because of how extreme these tariffs are. And to be fair, the critics have a really strong argument against how these tariffs were created. So let me explain. The administration told us that these tariffs were reciprocal, meaning they mirrored what other countries charged the US for imports. Whatever they charge us, we charge them the same.
Reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal. That means they do it to us and we do it to them.
They also claimed the tariffs were then cut by half because we're nice. But that's not true. These tariffs are actually a lot higher than what other countries charge the US. For example, China's average tariff on US goods isn't 67%. It's closer to between 6 to 10%. Vietnam faces 46%, but its tariffs on US goods are much lower. Tariffs on Australia are now 10%, but Australian tariffs on US goods is 0. They are not reciprocal. In fact, if you look at the world average before these tariffs, the US charged the world about 2.5%, and the world charged the US about 5 to 10%. So yes, it was unfair to the US, but these new tariffs are between 10 to 50%, which dwarf those rates. So the question is, why is the US going to charge the world so much more, and how did they pick these numbers? And it turns out someone figured out a formula that comes really close to how this was decided. The formula was based on a trade deficit with each country rather than directly matching the tariffs. So here's how it works. They took the trade deficit the US has with a country and divided it by the country's exports to the US, and then have the result for niceness. For example, the US trade deficit with China in 2024 was $294.4 billion, and imports from China were $439.9 billion. So step 1, trade deficit equals $295.4 billion. Step 2, $295.4 billion divided by $439.9 billion equals 67%. Step 3, 67% divided by 2 equals 33.5, so round up, which is how we got to 34%. A 34% tariff was applied to Chinese goods. Now, this formula was actually used for a lot of the countries listed, so let's look at another one. The US has a $17.9 billion trade deficit with Indonesia. Its exports to the US are $28 billion. So 17.9 divided by 28 equals 64%, which we are told is what...
So I'm just going to pause that there. So it sounds like they're bang on. It sounds like it looks like that's exactly how they got it. Honestly,
there's some smart people out there.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say, those guys are fucking clever.
And not, I don't think either of us are equipped to opine on if what they're doing is good or bad. It's a huge risk. It's a very interesting way of looking at it. I don't know that trade surpluses are exactly, because there are just some structural inequity. Like the trade surplus with China is going to be huge no matter what. Just the nature of China is the manufacturing base of the world, and America is the world's biggest consumer market. So it's going to be a massive one. Now, the fact of the matter is it's American companies that set up that system. They're the ones who built such a system, right? When they offshored all these American jobs since the 70s. So it's kind of interesting to see the American president kind of attack that system. But I will say this. I'm going to give credit for just fucking doing something. Like, he's doing something all right. You can't say he's not doing something. He's basically staking his presidency on this. And to some extent, you got to respect the game a little bit. You know, I'm sure it hurts if you're checking your retirement account right now. But you know, people have been complaining about this for decades, and at least you got someone who's trying to do something about it. Now, if it doesn't work, he's gonna crash and burn hard. But if it does, he's gonna be a fucking genius. He's gonna be a savant. And again, that's how leadership works, right? You get the big rewards when it goes right, and you eat the shit when it goes wrong. And we'll see it. But that's very, very interesting. And they definitely nailed it. This is exactly what they've been doing. I'll throw that on there we'll continue.
Indonesia charges us.
Listen, hold on.
Because we're nice, we'll charge them half, 32%.
They're just trying to explain it, right? Which
yes, he's not making a judgment or anything.
No, the guy is not saying that this is right.
Yeah,
all he's proven to you is Trump lied by saying it was reciprocal.
Yeah,
because they're not the same. He gave you the numbers. He's like, yes, there's a trade deficit. It's about 7.5%, between 5 and 10, when the average is 2.5. Yep. So there is definitely a 200 to 300% trade deficit between the U.S. and other countries. So Trump is right about that. But when it comes to the way the reciprocal tariffs were calculated, he's not being honest about it, and he's proving it to you. But is also, and this is one of the things I love about this video, I cannot tell if this guy's a leftist, is he a rightist, is he somewhere in the middle?
That's a great point.
I don't know, and he keeps it. That's why I chose this, because he's really just somewhere. He's like, this is what's going on. He's not telling you that it's right or wrong, but he's like, I got a conclusion, and I believe that this is what it is.
Yeah, and so, I think this topic, that's the right way to approach it, because it affects everybody. The markets don't give a shit if you're a liberal or a conservative.
No.
You're gonna get hammered regardless. And so I think this is the right way to do it. Is just don't tell us if it's good or bad. Just tell us what's actually happening.
There's a good reason why that guy has 2.1 million followers just on YouTube.
Yeah, great.
I'm just gonna. Oh, I told you this video is top fucking notch.
It sounds like it looks like you're watching like a Frontline documentary or something, like a professionally made show.
Bro, at 2.1 million followers, that guy probably makes more than $100,000 a month just
off
his YouTube channel.
He can
afford. He can afford it.
Half of 64. In reality, the number Indonesia charges the US is not 64% and never was. What it actually is about 8.1% on average. But it's certainly not 32%, and it's nowhere near 64%. Here's the rest of the countries if you want to pause and do the math yourself. But wait, it gets even worse. Because these numbers were purely based on goods, and the math completely ignored what are called the services section of an economy, which are things like tourism, education, financial services, and that's where the US actually has a trade surplus. In other words, we export more of that stuff than we import. And that should have been considered in the tariff calculation, but they were not. So what this means is that the US will now charge the world anywhere from 10 to 50% more for its products, and some countries even more on top of that for certain industries. So ultimately then, what does this all mean? And what's going to happen next? So most people will fall in one of two camps. The louder camp being, Trump is so dumb, he doesn't understand economics. Oh. So that's one of them. But the second camp says, maybe there's more to this than meets the eye. So let's take a look at some history and what other people have said about this concept of charging other countries more money for our products. And you might be surprised to see who the critics are.
Look. And if you look before the video, your favorite investor of all time, top right.
Oh, there she is.
Nancy Pelosi herself.
Yeah, the goat of investing.
But two of your favorite people. So Nancy Pelosi at the top, what's his name? Bernie Sanders at the bottom, and Jason's favorite guy, Obama.
Obama
himself, but you'll see what they say. See what they say about tariffs.
I think the president's doing the right thing. China has been taking advantage of us for two decades. They're stealing our intellectual property, which means stealing our good-paying jobs.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo. The lack of market access, the rip-off of our intellectual property, the transfer of technology, a country that is not willing to play by the rules in any respect in this trade relationship, you have a serious threat not only to our relationship, but to the industrialized world.
Further, what they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America, because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street, people who are making 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, healthcare, pensions, throw them out on the street, because somehow, Madam President, we are going to create wealth in America and good paying jobs in America as we shut down plants, we move to China, corporations there pay workers 20, 30 cents an hour, and we bring the product back into this country.
It's also proper for advanced economies like the United States to insist on reciprocity from nations like China that are no longer solely poor countries, to make sure that they're providing access to their markets and that they stop taking intellectual property and hacking our servers.
So you had a Republican that's saying, because it was in 2018, so he was calling the president is right. So obviously a Republican talking about Trump saying he was right.
Yep.
Then you have Nancy Pelosi in the 90s saying, how long are we going to take this? Then you have Bernie Sanders in the 2000s saying, they're all saying the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
and like, let's be honest, Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Like if there was a party left of the Democrat, that would fucking be Sanders. But it's funny how Republicans, Democrats, the president Democrat, a socialist are all saying the same thing, but just one seem to have the balls. And again, like him or not, he's always going to move that fucking needle. If there's one thing we have to agree on with Trump, he does not like the status quo.
It's not going to be boring. It's not going to be boring. And I'm going to give a grudging amount of, I don't necessarily think that this is the right way to do it. And I think he might come to regret it, but I respect that he's doing something. I respect that he's trying to do something, because, you know, as that shows us, people have been talking on both sides of the aisle for a very long time. They know this problem exists. And especially with China. China is the biggest issue. They have their markets closed to American goods. It's very difficult for American companies to sell their products into China. And China could be a major, massive consumer market, because, you know, their standard of living is going up. They're starting to build a middle class. And there's a lot of money for American companies to be made, but it's very difficult to get in there. And they have to obey very strict rules. As opposed to Chinese companies in America, there's no such restrictions. So, I mean, that's just fundamentally not fair. So something had to happen. I would like to see a lot of this just focused strictly on China. I think you know, there is a sense of America sort of going after everybody, and you know, we're gonna have to see how that plays out. But there are certainly some things that you can defend here, even if you don't like Trump.
It all becomes, is that guy's conclusion correct or not?
Yep.
And is it just a negotiation tactic from Trump?
Yeah.
This is what we're betting on right now. You can't. He's doing something so drastic that the market's going to crash no matter what. Yes. And I guarantee you, this is not going to be the last time in the next 4 years that the market is going to take a dive.
Yep.
But is what he's doing worth the risk? That's the real question we should be asking ourselves, right? We don't know yet. It's way too early. It's Monday. Yep. Let's talk about it on Friday, see what happened over the next, because the next 4 days are going to be fucking interesting. That's for damn. I can guarantee you the next 4 days are not going to be boring. Guarantee.
No, definitely not. We'll.
So imagine that.
Yeah, no, I was
Tariffs
just going to say,
can be beneficial as long as they are done strategically. Again, Mr. Trump has been saying this for almost 40 years.
I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off. And I can't promise you everything, but I can tell you one thing. This country would make one hell of a lot of money from those people that for 25 years have taken advantage. It wouldn't be the way it's been, believe me.
But now here's where things get really
Did you see that? A black woman was agreeing with Donald Trump.
Yeah, that was Oprah, eh?
You know it was. You know
yeah.
that was on Oprah, so you know it.
Oh yeah. So they used to be buddies, I think, back in the day. He certainly
there's
didn't.
plenty of picture with him and Oprah, with the Clintons, with
Oh yeah.
name it, they were friends. Name it.
Oh yeah.
Name
Oh
it.
fuck yeah.
They still are. It's all bullshit. To
I
me,
think
it's all
so too.
theater.
I think
it's all theater. It's all
yeah.
theater.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's definitely something there.
Like you know, at the beginning, before the show, we were talking about the left and the right when it comes to this, and I'm like, the politicians are not losing money on this. Like, I guarantee you, those people are going to be worth a lot more money next year than they were today.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
interesting. There's another theory which I think could be at play. Now, on the surface, tariffs are about fair trade by punishing importers, bringing back jobs, and protecting your own industries. But this theory has less to do with all of that and more to do with the Federal Reserve, interest rates, and the U.S. national debt. Think about the timing, for example. The U.S. economy has been facing high interest rates because of the Fed's fight against the pandemic's inflation. The government debt payments went way up because interest rates are now much higher than they were a couple years ago. In fact, U.S. interest payments on debt are approaching $1 trillion a year.
Wow.
Money that just goes out the door to bondholders.
Wow.
Now, if you're a president who campaigned on debt reduction and economic growth, high interest rates stand in your way. Just think about how Donald Trump has built his wealth. His entire life, he invested into real estate, then borrowed against his real estate to buy more real estate. Some people call it the BRRRR strategy. Buy, remodel, rent, refinance, repeat. Buy, remodel, rent, refinance, repeat. And that can only be possible in a time when interest rates are low. He even said no one gets rich while interest rates are high. So enter tariffs. Tariffs hurt everybody. They raise costs, they scare markets, and they can stop spending and investment. That's a bad thing. Even Howard Lutnick said, the world putting tariffs against itself, of course it's bad.
When we're all equal and everything is free and fair, if you raise tariffs and they raise tariffs, isn't it bad for society? The answer is, of course it is.
But a slower economy can accomplish something. It might send the US into a temporary short recession so that it forces the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates to stimulate that growth, to revive the economy, and to allow people to get rich again. And what else do lower interest rates do? They make it cheaper for the government to borrow and refinance its debt, of which this year there will be about $9 trillion of. Now,
So I just want to re-put this so that we can pause this. Because for the people listening to this, basically what he's showing right now is this is a post saying this is insane. In 2025, 9.2 trillion of US debt will either mature or need to be refinanced. So imagine if the interest rates were super low because the Federal Reserve does not have a choice to cut them in order to stimulate the economy. It's actually, I love the way this guy breaks down his stuff. It is fucking brilliant. The way he explains it, absolutely brilliant. But
yeah,
yeah,
you know, he makes the right point. Again, I'm not really qualified to say if this is smart or not. I mean, it seems like it might be a bit of a blunt instrument to achieve this. As I'm listening to something, there has to be better ways. Like, I guess, suppose, the Fed is separate from the government. I'm thinking, couldn't he just go and fucking talk to Jerome Powell and say, hey, Powell, why don't you reduce interest rates? But I guess it doesn't work like that. But
Trump is a shit disturber.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if we understand the type of individual we're talking about, this is feasible. Obama would have never
for
done
sure it
something
is.
like that.
For
They're
sure
not
it is.
the same type of person, right? So
Yep.
this is what makes it so interesting about this video. And obviously, I'm not saying that he's right, but god damn, he's making good points to try to show that maybe this is what's going on. And imagine on top of that, which I don't think he addresses in this video, but imagine that not only is it meant to force the hand of the Federal Reserve, it will show the Federal Reserve to which extent Trump is ready to go in order to get an interest cut.
Yep.
But also imagine if it's a two bird, one stone scenario, and he's using this to negotiate lower tariffs for everybody in the world. Because as the guy said at the beginning, 2.5 is about the average that Americans good carry when it comes to tariff for what they import.
Yep.
But they get an about 7.5% from other countries. So that's still 300% more. So imagine if he was able to not only cut the interest rate, renegotiate the debt at a lower rate, stimulate the economy that's been fucked since COVID, and at the same time, finally put small tariffs everywhere or have others remove tariffs from American goods. Like if this is what the guy is doing, that's like baller move right there. Like that is baller.
Well,
For
yeah,
what? A temporary, maybe a 2-3 months drop in the market that the people that invest are going to get it back no matter what. They're not going to lose. And the smart guys are like, yay, candy shop. They're just fucking investing more money.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it all works out, he's gonna get the ticker tape parade. It's definitely a risk. And we'll but I kind of like the risk. I like taking risks. I don't necessarily know if I would do this if I were president, but I don't know if I'd have a stomach for it, to be honest. But I can appreciate somebody just doing something, and one way or another, we're gonna find out if it works. If it works, then he may basically have written a new chapter in global economics, and if not, then he's gonna have to pay the piper on some level. It's gonna be some accountability.
This year, there will be about $9 trillion of. Now, all of this sounds almost Machiavellian, right? But it's a theory with a lot of data points suggesting that at least it could be possibly intentional. It's supported, at least in part, by one of the most legendary macro investors and economic historians of all time, Ray Dalio. You might know him as the founder of Bridgewater, which is one of the biggest hedge funds in the world, and the guy who literally wrote the book on global economic cycles, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. And recently, he tweeted something that might help decode exactly what's going on. So Ray Dalio broke down tariffs like this. They're a special kind of tax, and when you understand their first and second order effects, it starts to make sense why all of this might be happening right now. And here's a really simple version of what he said. Tariffs raise revenue for the government and protect domestic industries. They're actually deflationary for the countries being tariffed and inflationary for the country that's imposing them. But if the economy slows down enough, the central bank, like the Fed, steps in with rate cuts, and that changes everything. In other words, tariffs can force the Fed's hand. Ray Dalio points out that these policies can actually reduce global economic efficiency, lower capital flows, and eventually lead to something called stagflation, which is bad for most of the world, but useful for the US if the Fed responds with easier monetary policy. He also said that tariffs can decrease our reliance on foreign production, boost domestic resilience, and help fix unsustainable trade and debt imbalances. So you take that idea and you combine it with $1 trillion in yearly US interest payments, and the fact that Mr. Trump's real estate background taught him the importance of refinancing during low interest rate environments, and suddenly all this starts to make a lot more sense.
And I would even add one more thing as I'm rewatching this video. One of the other thing that could be a beautiful thing to happen if the Federal Reserve actually cuts the rate in the US, not only can Trump refinance the debt at a lower tax rate, but all the tariffs that he's putting in place in order to bring more business back into the country, their investment, they will take money out. They will get loans to invest back in the US at a lower interest rate. So he's kind of stimulating both the refinancing of their debt as well as while bringing more business back to the US, say you can get it at a cheaper rate. So if that's what he's doing, it's fucking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, again, we're gonna have to wait and see. But if that's what he's doing, I agree. That's a smart move. Now, especially if it works. If it works, he's a genius. And I mean that's one of the things about taking risk, right? It's high risk, but it's also high reward. And again, I at least respect the fact that he's willing to put his chips in the middle, and he's actually, putting his money where his mouth is, essentially. This is a great video.
It's almost done. I think there's like 1 or 2 minutes left. Sorry for cutting you off, but it's almost
it's all good. He's certainly making a strong case for what he's saying. When it first started, I was like, I don't know, but now I can definitely see where he's coming from.
Slow the economy down, trigger a recession scare, force the Fed to cut, refinance the U.S. debt, potentially reindustrialize the U.S., fix the trade imbalance, and make the trade more fair. Mr. Dalio even ended his post saying that the world's monetary and geopolitical systems are overdue for a reset, and that these kinds of abrupt, unconventional moves are exactly how it happens. He literally titled his new book, How Countries Go Broke. And while that might sound scary, it means that these kind of resets might actually be a survival tactic to reduce foreign dependency, rebuild domestic production, and make sure that the dollar stays strong as the world's reserve currency. But the real point I want to leave you with is that we might disagree on how to fix something, but as long as our goal is mutual, which is to fix something, then we should give each other the benefit of the doubt. And it's okay to be critical, which is why I explained that the tariff numbers made very little sense. It seems like they're confusing trade deficits with tariffs. But I also explained how this might also be part of a bigger strategy, maybe one that's more long-term. And maybe that's why Mr. Trump calls this Liberation Day, not just because it punishes other countries, but because it resets the system. It's like medicine or surgery, painful in the short term, but potentially healing in the long term. Ultimately though, no one knows, besides Mr. Trump, how long this pain might last. But if you want to go deeper with how these tariffs might affect your stock portfolios or...
man, if you have money to invest, I would fucking deal with that guy. Like, that's what he does.
Yep.
He's an investing, like he's a financial investor, but brilliant video. Absolutely brilliant video.
Yeah, he made a super strong case. And, like he said, one thing we all agree, everyone's been talking about this for years, about the debt crisis that all the politicians talk about is, really they just say, the other side's going to run up the debt. The other side's going to run up the debt. But both sides say it. No one has any plan or ever talks about reducing it or getting out of what seems like an unsustainable cycle. And that Ray Dalio guy that he referenced, I think the words he used was a death spiral or something like that. And I think his theory is that sooner or later, whether something massive is going to have to change, and it might be like a catastrophe, it might be like another global crisis, or maybe I guess it could be something like this, where at least we have some control over it. But either way, on some level, again, I don't know that I would have necessarily gone this route if I were president, but I can respect that he's putting his money where his mouth is and putting his chips in the middle.
I just love the way the video I absolutely love, agree with what Trump is doing or not. He kind of put perspective to it as to why he might be doing it. Like at the end, he names like 6 different things that he could be doing with the same, what the tariffs were put in place to get. And it takes a stomach, man. It takes somebody with fucking balls to do what he's doing. But there's a video from, it must be somewhere from 2-3 years ago, if not more, by Dana White, because he's personal friends with Trump.
Yeah,
and he talks about the type of mentality that Trump has, how he's unfazed by this shit. Like a guy like Dana White, that's in the public eye, that ran a massive company as the UFC. Like they bought it, I think they were 50 million in the hole, and it's worth more than $1 billion now. Like, love the guy or not, he knows what they understand what they're doing, and he's just saying how ballsy Trump is, how he's capable of dealing with some of the worst fucking shit happening to him, and he's just like, he doesn't seem to lose. You'll call him and he's like, hey, what you doing? How you doing, buddy? Yeah, like, no problem, I can deal with this, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, he's gonna have to use. He's got good thing he's got that, because he's gonna need that in the coming weeks, because there's gonna be a ton of pressure.
From both sides.
Yeah,
from both sides, right?
Especially, and that's it. He's used to the pressure from the other side, I'm sure. But he's gonna have to face off against a lot of his own supporters, a lot of his own people who are saying, "Don't do this, turn around," and it'll be interesting to see if he's able to withstand that storm, because that is a difficult thing to do.
And you can't. And the thing is that he doesn't have a choice to continue. He can't pull it off. If that's in fact what the guy described there, if that's in fact what he's doing, Trump has you don't know if it's going to take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. He has to continue. He cannot stop. He needs to continue.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like, if that's what he's doing, God damn, you got balls. Fuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Prairie agrees. She's interesting, she says, and she's talking about she's commented that when the show was on. But yeah, that was an excellent video. Certainly added some very interesting context, and he made a strong case for what he thinks Trump is doing. And if even some of that is true, I think Trump's going to he's going to if he gets even like 50% of that come true, he'll be able to probably claim some sort of victory. And of course, there's a potential that it all works out and he can like really just take a flat out victory lap. And there's also potential it blows the fuck up in his face, and he's going to have to eat a bunch of shit, and we'll see how that works. But yeah, like you said, it's never boring with this guy.
Let's take Mitchell said something earlier. This only impacts 10% of American. The tax saving realized from a successful tariff strategy directly impact the other 90% of American who detest giving the government their money at the moment. Most conservative are holding strong and watching the fireworks. And not only that, but if you go to X, go check what's trending right now. There's memes that are hilarious. They're literally saying the poor people watching billionaires and millionaires lose all their money, and they're like eating popcorn and celebrating.
Oh yeah.
The average American does not have a shit ton of money invested in the market. So they're looking at this and they're just like, this is fucking interesting. So relax, take a breath. If you have a lot of money invested, I feel you.
It hurts.
But at the same time, stop watching the news. Stop watching this shit and just try to carry on. Because if there's one thing the books I named earlier are going to tell you from the get-go, if you're the type of person that gets very emotional about their money, do not fucking invest your money. They all say the same thing. It's always the same warning. If you're going to play the market, do not be that type of person, because you're going to have a heart attack. Like, you
got to know yourself. And that's what they always say. Do not check the day-to-day because it'll scare the shit out of you. There's always the downs. Now, it's probably hard not to do that today. But yeah, I think like you said, I think it's Buddy made a great case. I think it's funny because, as you said, a lot of regular working class people, especially, but even middle class people, don't have a ton of like investments. And
not anymore.
A lot of it is because the American dream has been stripped away from them. A lot of the people who are most furious about this are people who had pretty good manufacturing jobs that were offshore to China. And do you think they give a shit right now about the stock portfolios of the billionaires who ship their jobs off? I guarantee they don't. They're out there with popcorn saying, fucking keep it up. Keep it up. That's what I'm saying. There will be pushback from his side, but it's going to be like the guys that I showed earlier, Bill Ackman. It's going to be the hedge fund guys who they're like, oh no, we support you, but not like this. And it's like, motherfuckers, what'd you think? Like he's been saying this, as that guy said, he played that clip of Trump talking about tariffs and getting ripped off for 20 years ago on Oprah. It was so long ago, Oprah liked him. So I mean that he's been talking about it since Oprah liked him. So that shows you how long ago it has been. But yeah, it's great video. I think and guys, if you are watching this and you got something from that, please like and share. I think a lot of people, I wish a lot of people saw that video because it certainly puts things in perspective. Yeah, really good.
It was very interesting because all I could find this morning were the scary, like, oh no, the world's gonna end, and the other people are like, oh, don't worry, you don't have anything to worry about. That guy went somewhere in the middle. Great quality to his video, just like beautifully done, just beautifully done. There's a lot of time in that video. That was a long fucking video to produce, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the video was great. I think like I said, I think he makes a great case. Again, I don't know if I would be doing that. I don't know if it's going to work out the way Trump thinks. And I'm not sure. I think like the way that the way he takes trade deficits and translates them into tariffs as if it's not really the same thing. But there are things that have to change. There are structural global inequities that have to change. There's a lot of people who's been hurt by both parties offshoring their jobs, hollowing out the middle class. And if Trump's the guy that if it takes a personality like him to actually do something, like there's only one or two things are going to happen. It's going to work or it's going to fail.
It's not.
And either way,
you need a guy like him to do it. Obama wouldn't have done it. Biden wouldn't have done it. Nobody would have done what Trump's doing right now. And if you need that reset, if that's the goal, he was the perfect guy to do it.
Yep. And you're right. And I think someone's got to do something. And even if it fails, at least now we know what don't work. And yeah, people are going to be hurt, and that sucks. But there's risk in everywhere. I think a lot of the left is just going to hate it because it's Trump. But it's going to really backfire if it does work. Because where do you go from there if you're the left? Mitchell says, I didn't see an angle with the video, pure information. That's how I saw it. You couldn't tell if the guy was a liberal or a conservative, right or left. And I think this issue is too big. It's too big to affects too many people to look at it through a partisan lens. And that goes for both sides. I'm not really interested in someone who just despises Trump and therefore goes against it. Vice versa. I'm not really interested in someone's opinion who loves Trump and no matter what, they're just going to agree with whatever he does either. Again, something has to change. We politicians have been talking about this kind of stuff for decades and no one has done anything about it. So would I have necessarily done this if I was president? Probably not in this way. But he is the president and he's doing it and we're all going to see what happens. And, he's gonna get the victory parades, the ticker tape parades if he's right, and he's gonna eat a whole lot of shit from all sides, from his own side if he's wrong. Tony G says, from what I've seen of the left's elaborate arts and craft costumes, investing in Michaels is a great idea. Yeah, well, if you saw it there's a lot of protests this weekend, and sure, there's a lot of costumes out there, a lot of hair dye.
There weren't costume. That's just their regular outfits. We consider them costume, but they're just regular outfits for those people. Remember the dog video from last week where the guy thinks he's a dog and he's being trained to roll and people are clapping? Unfortunately, That's not a joke. Now, I had another video I wanted to show about this because it's Patrick Bet-David.
Yep.
It's just the way he approaches it. He gives a personal experience from a personal account of one of his buddies. And yes, obviously Patrick Bet-David is more of a conservative than he is a liberal, obviously. But I like the way he explains it. Like, it's very simple. It's just him holding his phone. There's no production value, but it goes back to what we were saying, as in, if you have money invested, don't panic. If you can't panic, if you're not able to not panic, probably don't invest your money. So video's about 4 minutes long. I'm just going to let it run, but just great point by Patrick Bet-David.
Okay. I'll see it.
Bing, bing.
Experts are saying tomorrow, Monday, is going to be Black Monday. Like, market's going to drop. It's going to be nasty, and it may. So I got some unsolicited advice I want to share with you before we kick off our week. A couple things. When COVID happened, I was in LA getting ready for a board meeting. I land, we get to Beverly Hills Hilton. Wife is there, kids are there. We thought we may as well go to Universal Studios for, having a good time with the family. All of a sudden, that's the day where Rudy Gobert gets COVID to Donovan Mitchell, Disney closed down, Universal closed down, NHL shut down. We're in LA. We're like, what the hell is going on? We got on a plane. I said, babe, we can't stay. We got to go back. Everybody canceled the board meeting. We flew back to Dallas, dropped off family, came back to the office, was at the office till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the one thing I studied was the following. My entire business insurance is face-to-face. I have to sit down in front of you to sell you. So imagine you got 15, 20,000 insurance agents nationwide. None of us know how to sell on Zoom. We've never done that before, right? So it was a big disruption to our business. Every one of my guys was frightened of what's about to happen. I stayed there. First thing I looked at was the following. In the history of America, I looked at every pandemic that took place, top 10, worst pandemic on how the market performed. And it shows, the collapse and all this other stuff, nasty. Out of 10 pandemics that we've had, 9 of them, whatever the drop was that was drastic, within 6 months, it recovers and goes above and beyond. The only one that it didn't recover for 18 months was the AIDS pandemic that we had. So what's the point here? When the market tanked, and it went to like 18,000 Dow, I don't know what it was, but some number like that, one of my good friends was so afraid of where the market was going to be going that he took 100% of his money out of his investments. We're talking 10 million goes down to 5 million. He takes the whole thing out. 3 months after he takes the whole thing out, everything goes back to normal price that it was before and beyond. But he lost $5 million. So what's the moral of the story? Whether tomorrow is going to be black, if it's Black Monday tomorrow, I'm losing tens of millions of dollars tomorrow, and purely investment-wise. But if it is, pump the brakes, not your financial advisor, seek counsel. I got to put that disclaimer out there. Pump the brakes, don't make an emotional decision. If you're a passive investor, not an active one. Active is somebody that watches it 24/7 and is managing everything that's going on. But if you're passive, 401k, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, stuff like that you have, that all of them, oh my God, Bitcoin went to this, Ethereum went to this, look at the Tesla, look at Max 7, look at what are we going to do? Just pump the brakes. This tariff situation is going to come about, and it's going to go. You have to know one thing that the president knows, and every CEO of every job knows. If the market goes into shits, guess what? The other party's taking over midterms. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying to you. So every leader knows when you come in and you make some drastic changes, it better work or else the other side's going to get a job. They know that. Trust me.
Pretty much what you were saying earlier.
So having said that, long term, future looks bright. Short term, only the paranoid survive. Whatever you do, try to tap into your ability to reason. Not emotion, but logic and reason. If you do that, we're all going to be fine. But I will tell you, we are about to go through some bumpy. This is why I call 2025 the year of surprises, because I knew this was coming up. And I knew if the president was going to do what he said he was going to do with tariffs, lots of enemies. And many of the enemies he was going to create were going to be domestic. People who lose money. And a lot of people have lost money so far in 2025. But I don't want you to be surprised tomorrow if Monday's a crazy day with the market. That's why I call 2025 the year of surprises. And if you know one thing, if you've seen Tom Cruise's movie Cocktails, which is my favorite Tom Cruise movie, I know there's a lot of great ones. He says, I bet you can never spook me again. And she said, I bet I can. We're having twins. I just want to make sure you don't get spooked tomorrow if the market is crazy. Just stay in control.
That's a good video.
Sounded like a father advice talking to his 25-year-old son that has $5,000 in the market. Just, bro, I got 10 millions right now. It's gonna be like, bro, it's all good. Relax, it's fine. I just thought it was like, I watched this video, and I'm not the biggest fan of Patrick Bet-David, but I checked the video. I'm like, solid advice. Like, I like it. I like his advice.
Yeah, I mean that's true of almost any financial advisor. They'll say do not sell in the panic, and that's just based on the history of the panic sell, right? That's just it historically always comes back. Now, like I think the time frame he gave was 6 months. That sounds about right. It's not going to necessarily be tomorrow, but yeah, as you said, and this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like at the end of the day, at least he's putting his chips in the middle. There's nowhere to hide for Donald Trump right now. There's you can't sweep this under the rug. And on some level, I know that there's a lot of the criticism about the left is always what they think he's trying to do. It's always something other than what he says, right? It's always some ulterior motive or an agenda. And I think a lot of times that's probably correct. But in this case, he clearly would not be doing this if he didn't believe that it was the right thing. Because as I said, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to go. And if it blows up in his face, then the Democrats should be, they'll be doing a victory lap because it's going to be a real easy win in 2028 if this really does tank the economy. So,
even
in some ways,
2026 at the midterm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. So I think, in a lot of ways, I just like that a politician is just willing to do something. We all agree this is a real problem. And rather than talk about it, he's doing something about it. And again, I can't really say this enough. I don't necessarily, if I was president, I would probably not do this. It's probably not the way that I would go, but it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to work or it's not. And at least if it doesn't, we'll know it doesn't work. And if it does, then perhaps he's got a new, he might have given a boost to the American middle class. If this repatriates even 40 or 30% of the manufacturing capacity that's gone to China, that will be huge for the American middle class. Huge. So again, we're going to have to wait and see, but at least he's doing something. And I do appreciate that.
I just like that video. I just like the way Patrick Bet-David spoke. He really talks like a father.
Yeah, he does. Makes you feel a little bit better. Son,
it's gonna be okay, bro. Just don't be a bitch.
Yeah,
it's gonna be okay. That's almost like, okay, thanks, Dad. You need to call. You're at college and you don't know what the fuck to do. You call your father, and that's what he tells.
Yeah, the girls don't like me. I'm not making any friends. Yeah.
Anything
we talked
else
about
to add to this before we change the subject?
Yeah. I was just going to say, we talked earlier about Tony. He was saying like, oh, I don't have the, I don't have the heart to invest right now. And, that's fair. I don't know, again, like I said, I personally, I might be, looking into put a few dollars here and there, but that's sort of a personal thing. But for sure, one thing, if you do own, don't sell like that is, and again, I'm just repeating, that's not my personal advice. I'm just repeating what any financial advisor will tell you. Whether you want to buy or not, that's a slightly more risky decision, but also high risk, potential high reward. But I think almost any financial advisor will tell you, do not sell into the panic. That never works out. And just as we're watching here, it's still down, but it's down 1.15% on the day, the Dow.
Yep.
So slowly getting back up there is not, 1.15% is, that happens regularly. That's not any type of, so we'll see. Maybe the turnaround is near, or maybe it's just a small bounce before it just plunges again. And that is how the market works. We'll take this comment and then move on.
Before you do, look at this. So right now, because I get alarms at the bottom of my screen all the time about the market. And over the day, the SP 500 is down 0.71%. So not even
not much.
percent.
Not much
Over the past, so if you check over the past 5 days, it's 9.14%.
which is
over the past month is almost 12%. Over the past year, it's 2%. Over the past 5, it has gone up by more than 80%.
So yeah,
So
puts it in perspective.
Hold on. No, that was the Dow. So even the Dow, bro, like the Dow has been down for 1.1% today. But if you look at the past 5 years for the SP 500, which is to me the best investment you can do if you're not worried, like you don't want to manage your money, it's been up by 100.2% over the past 5 years. Who was in power during that time? Biden. So all I'm saying is that right now, even after the dip that we're taught that everybody's freaking out, over the past 5 years, it's still up by 100%. That's insane. An insane amount of money. So again, Patrick Bet-David, I think, mentioned it. It's the long-term goal. Every single book, the 3 books I mentioned earlier, long-term. If you're not reading the market day in, day out, trying to just move asset from one funds to the other, trying to make those 2, 3, 4, 5, 10% investment every day, just put your money in there. Try to forget about it. Try to forget.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
Of course it is. It's money, bro. You're looking at this. Alarm. You just lost 20% of your cash. What?
Yeah. But and the thing is, like, it's really easy to make this partisan or political. Fact of the matter is the stock markets go up regardless over the long term. That goes up regardless of who's president. A lot of the forces at work are really not really like they're macro forces that are beyond even who's president, who's making those decisions. A lot of it is just sort of built into the global economic system. So yeah, I know it's scary. It's scary for, I think, anybody who's got any type of retirement fund, but it's always scary in this moment. And then it's sort of, a couple months from now, you're like, oh yeah, okay, maybe it wasn't so bad, or maybe I should have bought, or certainly I should have not sold. As the guy in that video there, he had $10 million of investments, went down to 5, and then it went back up to 10.
3 months after, it was worth more.
Yeah, so he probably would have been 12 or 13 million, and now he's sitting there with his 5 mil. That's a hard pill to swallow.
And imagine if the guy still had a couple of million sitting somewhere, he would have invested it.
Yeah,
instead of 10, he would have had 12 invested, and then 3 months after, he could have not only remade all of his money, but made an extra chunk on top of that because of the value that it took. So it's ballsy, bro. Like, investing that type of money is a ballsy move, but that's why most people don't do it.
It's really hard. I owned 8 Bitcoin a couple years back. So I bought when it was like 2017. I think it was like 25. Every time I first heard about Bitcoin in like 2013, and I was like, fucking whatever this was.
You don't own 7% Bitcoin right now.
No, fuck no.
Hey, because at 85 grand American a pop.
No. That was the point. Is I owned. So I actually spent 25,000. I think it was like I bought it when I was 2,500, and I owned 8 Bitcoin, and then it went up pretty quickly. It went up to like $10,000 a coin. I was like, fuck yeah. And then it went down to 5. It was like, ah. So I sold and I made a couple bucks, but like now every day, I sit there and I do the math. I'm like, ooh, it's so hard. And I even bought it as a long-term investment, and I knew that it was meant to be. But when you're watching it go, in retrospect, it was obviously stupid, but when you're there in the moment, you have no idea if it's going to go up, if it's going to go down. And it's so hard. Even if you consider yourself, cool-headed, when it's your real money at play, it's so hard. And that's why they say, don't even look, don't even look. Cause it's most of us mere mortals do not have that kind of, ability to just watch your money on paper disappear and just be completely cool with it. You got to be fucking ice in your veins in order to do that.
How much a Bitcoin is worth right now?
I know.
Even after all the hit that it took over the past week.
What is it?
$111,000.
Oh, and that's probably American too, is it?
No, that's Canadian. That's Canadian.
Okay.
It's I said about 85 grand because that's a lot. Yeah. I'm always thinking Americans. I want to see.
Okay.
But right about now,
111. Oh.
Sorry, bro.
It hurts every day. Yeah.
Balls.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
No, it sucks. But I mean, it's like It is.
That
it
would
is
be
life.
worth $1 million, basically.
Yeah, about
right
$1 million
now.
bucks. About $1 million bucks. But lessons learned, I guess. Lessons learned. Mitchell Lewis. I mean, that's a great lesson for not to sell during the panic, right? I'm living proof.
Don't be Rob.
Yeah, don't be me. You don't want to be me.
I'm sorry, bro. That sucks.
No,
I
it
don't
sucks.
mean to laugh at you. Damn.
It
Boom.
sucks. It's just in some ways it all felt fake anyways. Like it's all paper money, right? You know, so I don't. It doesn't feel like I know that I lost, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it. And you know,
You're
I try
like
not to,
that betting guy that goes to, he starts playing card, he starts playing poker. He joined with like $100, but then he makes 10 grand, but he loses it all. Oh, but it's okay. I only lost $100.
Yeah. That's exactly how it works. Though. You tell yourself that. You tell yourself that to make yourself feel a little bit better. Mitchell Lewis says, also consider the financial interests of the companies that own and fund the news agencies that are howling about tariffs and trying to enrage everyone. Correct. This is like the media howling because conservatives want to regulate the pharmaceutical industry while pharma is responsible for most of their ad revenue. I mean, that's a great point. You always have to listen or think about the incentives of the people, and media is a business, certainly. And so you have to factor in their incentives. And I think that's always important to the fact, like I said, I showed a comment about Bill Ackman, who's a Trump supporter, hedge fund manager, and he's sort of like, you can tell he's spooked. He's saying pump the brakes. And I think it was important to hear his argument, but by no means do I think we should just listen to what, the hedge fund guys and the Wall Street guys are thinking, because of course they are going to be upset. Of course they are. Doesn't mean they're necessarily wrong, but by no means doesn't mean they're necessarily right. And so all we can do is, in some ways the internet, it's like an information fire hose, right? We're just soaked in information, and it's really hard to try to pick through the shit. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with this show. And we won't always get it right. But you're right, Mitchell, in that you always have to be thinking about those sorts of things. Who benefits from this? Why am I hearing about this now? But that's the right mindset to take to this.
There was a great, if we had more time, I would have played a video from Warren Buffett from an interview over the weekend where they actually spoke to him and he explained a few things, and even goes back to say that he was born during the Great Depression in 1929. And his father sold stocks and bonds. So he was explaining how a weeks prior to the Great Depression, his father was still out there selling this stuff to people, and overnight it lost so much fucking money. And this is basically what's happening right now. If you look at the people that are screaming, are the people that need to face their customers today and try to explain why it went down.
Right.
And Buffett is saying, like, my dad hid. Like, he stopped. Back then you could, right? If you stayed home, nobody could find you. Today, not so much.
No, it's no hiding today.
So again, you need to put it into perspective as to who's screaming right now.
Yeah.
Because they need to face customers. I don't need to face customers right now to explain myself. So I get to laugh at this a bit. It's not funny. But we're not in the same scenario. So be careful who you're listening to, right?
That's right. Yeah, no, it's great advice. Just at least think about the incentives of the people that are telling you things.
Now, let's talk about our Canadian update.
Yeah, let's do that.
We said that we would carry an update every day just to let you know what's going on in the election in Canada, because there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. First, one that actually I was happy to see Pierre Poilievre talk about this, because I will agree with him on this one. I don't agree with a lot of things he says, but this one I definitely agree with him. And it's about the CBC. And to me, it makes sense because this is a very left versus right type of.
Oh, very much. The CBC?
Like in Canada, it is 100% left versus right. The left wants to continue funding the CBC at more than $1.4 billion every year right now, when it generates about $500 million every year. So we're literally 300% what they can't survive without the government. And can we all agree that the CBC is a propaganda machine for the Liberal Party? Like, let's be honest here. They don't talk very well of Pierre Poilievre or anybody that's not a Liberal right now. Anybody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it's interesting right now because over the weekend they were talking about this. Both had, for once, they had a very dissimilar opinion. Mark Carney is basically saying he wants to fund them even more. And then Pierre Poilievre is saying that he wants to defund them altogether. So I'll show you, here's a quick video about Carney speaking about the CBC. And then I'll show you a post from Pierre Poilievre just to show you where they're sitting right now.
If elected, my government will take action to enshrine and protect and strengthen CBC Radio Canada for generations to come. We will modernize the mandate of our public broadcaster. We will give it the resources it needs to fulfill its renewed mission and ensure that its future is guided by all Canadians and not subject to the whims of a small group of people led by ideology.
The Liberal Party.
Well, yeah. Now, is he being totally clueless, or is he at least making some reference to the? Because if he's talking about a CBC being run by a small group of people with an ideology, he can't. Even Carney, he wouldn't try to say that that's a conservative ideology, would he? That's wild. I almost have to expect he's trying to make a concession to the right. I think. Maybe, unless he's actually trying to make the case that it's conservative ideology, because nobody believes that. Like, come on, man.
The people that watch the CBC do believe that.
Do they really? Holy hell.
Who do you think believes who do you think? See, always remember, the polls that we were talking about, every single age group outside of the 60 plus are overwhelmingly wanting to vote conservative. Only the 60 and above still want to vote for the Liberal. Who do you think listens to the CBC? It ain't the 18-year-olds. It ain't the 30-year-old. It ain't the 40-year-old. It's the 60 plus. So he's basically selling his own base. There's no other reason. Explain to me why, as a Liberal, explain to me why would the Liberal government want to continue funding an enterprise that does not generate money, that loses money, that needs taxpayers' money to survive? Why? Not only that, but I couldn't find a post, but I found the old heritage minister saying that not only did they want to invest more, because Carney said the same, obviously, in this video, but they were talking about doubling their budget. So not just 1.2 to 1.4 billion dollars, but to make it almost 2.8 billion dollars a year. I couldn't find Carney say that, but the old heritage government or the old heritage minister did say that under Trudeau.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's right. I don't want government to be funding any media, especially if that media is getting involved in opinions and editorials. You
obviously it does, right?
Yes,
obviously.
They do. I mean, they can try to deny it, but the fact is, everybody. I actually thought the debate was the Conservatives were saying, the CBC is biased towards the Liberals, and the Liberals are saying no, it's not. I didn't realize the Liberals are saying it's biased for the Conservatives. That would be wild because I don't think anybody's
like how else can you take that comment? And I'm asking the people out there, how are you people that are listening to this? How do you take his comment? Because to me, he made it sound like there's a small group of people that are controlled. Sure. We don't want that. We don't want a small group of people controlling it.
A small group of ideologically driven people. Now, that's what I'm saying. I was wondering, is he giving certain concessions to the right, saying, yes, we know that it's been ideologically driven by a small group of like left-leaning people? Or is he trying to say that it was a small group of right-wing people? Because that would be wild, man. If that's what he's trying to.
What else is he saying? Because at the end of the day, it's the Liberal that started funding them, and I believe it was in 2018 or 2017 that they started to fund the CBC. So prior to that, like Harper, that was in 2014, that left in 2015, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
He wasn't funding them. It only started to be funded by taxpayers' money.
Well, now, what do you mean, like the political side? Because like CBC has always, I think, had some government funding, but I don't think they've always been political. I think they've always been like telling, shows and remember Hockey Night in Canada was a big CBC show.
My kids show that I watched when I was a child, they were of the CBC. All the cool, I remember all the cool Canadian. Do you remember like it started black and white at the beginning of the CBC at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah,
it was always an animation of stuff. There were ducks and shit, like we were migrating somewhere.
Oh,
I watched this shit growing up. I love the CBC.
They had the Canadian national anthem on every morning.
That's it. That's the one. That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
That was amazing, right? There was a use for that, but I agree. Like once they start getting into the politics side and the opinion side, especially when it's quite clearly to the left, and I say it as a lefty, like I just see it as it's such a lightning rod. It's just going to create division. Of course, conservatives and right wingers are going to be upset with that, and just like people on the left would be upset if Fox News was being funded by the government. You know what I mean? Like, of course they will. Like, you can't have it both ways. Try to be fair, and but if that's what Carney is saying, that the CBC has been driven by a small group of ideologically driven conservatives, that is a ridiculous statement.
And, to add to this, and this is why I believe that that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Because look at what Pierre Poilievre is saying right now. Here is what Pierre Poilievre basically posted this morning. Like, that's pretty fucking clear. You don't need an explanation.
Yeah.
Big black on white letter on black, like red and white on black background saying defund the CBC. That's pretty fucking clear. I don't think that the party if they represented the conservative, he would say that.
Yes.
I don't know.
Of course.
I don't understand half of the shit that Pierre Poilievre does, but I'm pretty sure on this one, he would say that. Just say it.
If it's right, it's all the liberals and lefties who want the CBC, who want to increase funding, and it's all the conservatives who are wanting to defund it. Now, why do you think that would happen if it was ideologically driven conservatives driving it? Of course it wouldn't, right? Of course. So yeah, I think that right there proves that if that's what Carney's saying, he's full of shit.
If you go back to and what's funny is that if you start going, just do defund the CBC on X, for example, hit enter and just look at what comes up.
Yep.
There was some videos from the liberals saying that the people that needs the CBC the most are the people that are living in remote area. And I'm like, are you fucking retarded? Most of those people are fucking conservative, you dumb fuck. People that the liberals live in cities, and the more conservative people try to stay away from the liberals that lives in the cities. So they live in buttfuck nowhere.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So they're basically saying we need to fund the CBC more so that the people that live in remote area has access to the news. And I'm just I'm responding to those comments. I'm like, have you guys never heard about the internet? Like, you do realize I lived in the woods for fucking 3 years. Like, fuck off. I had a better connection than I do now with Starlink. So don't give me this shit. Like, I had access to the internet, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing too. Like when they make those arguments, it's like it's 30 years ago, and like they'll be like, "Oh, well, they wouldn't have TV. They wouldn't no company is giving them in service." Well, nobody watches TV anyways anymore. Everyone's on the internet. Everyone's cut the
60
cord.
plus.
Yeah, the 60 plus. Exactly.
And the 60 plus are not the one living in the woods by themselves because they're 60 plus. They need help.
Yeah, they're living in cities, and homes have gone up in price value 100% in the last 10 years. They're sitting pretty. They're sitting large. It's the rest of us, trying to be able to afford. Everyone else who's under 40 trying to buy a house for the first time, trying to get a piece of that Canadian dream, and people are increasingly feeling shut out by it. And when that happens, when you feel like there's a large chunk of people who feel increasingly shut out from the economy and society, from getting the things that our parents seem to have gotten much easier, they're going to blame the party that's been in power for the last 9 years. And that's just how politics works.
As it should.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to take, do you want to take a couple comments?
Yeah, I got this. Tony says, "Wow, unbelievable! Who's buying Carney's crap?"
I love how he called it Cornet's crap. I love the mistake. I absolutely love the fucking mistake, bro.
He corrected
Good
it
stuff.
there, but yeah. And Prairie's back. She says she had to help hold trolls in Maxime's live. Well, good to see you back, Prairie. You're fighting the good fight. She lives in bumfuck nowhere, close to Scratch Your Ass, Saskatchewan. And I suspect Prairie probably doesn't feel super strongly or doesn't feel that she needs the CBC. But that they're telling you it's the rural people, it's the people who live where Prairie is. What do people where you live, Prairie, how do they feel about the CBC?
That's a very, very valid question, right?
Yeah, I suspect it's not quite what they'll tell you with the people who are saying, it's the rural people who need it. But
and what's funny is that if you again, I don't have the time. We don't have the time to go through all those messages, but all those posts. Sorry, but if you go to X and you start looking at what the people that are supporting Carney and giving more money to the CBC, they're all talking about those remote individuals. They're all fucking people from the city. The people from remote areas are like, hey, fuck you with CBC. We don't need this shit. Who's listening to It's like I was watching a video over the weekend. I don't know if you saw this, but it was about voter ID. How racist it is to ask for an ID.
That's so ridiculous.
And it's all white people are saying, oh, well, black people live in neighborhoods that they don't necessarily have access to all. And then the guy shows up in the ghetto and he's like, hey, do you have ID? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, like every other human being. Yeah, of course. Of course.
But then
so
they're
stupid.
like, the hypocrisy of white people being so fucking racist by saying that those people don't have access to those
they're not
resources,
smart enough to get
or
ID.
they don't
Exactly.
they don't know how to use the internet. That's basically what they're saying there. So the people in the city are basically saying to people that live in the country, you guys are too fucking stupid to have a cell phone, to have a smartphone, like your flip phone. They only have flip phones, so they can't use the news.
Classic left wing. It's sort of like the there's a saying of it. Someone said it was a famous speech a while back by a conservative. I forget who, like 10 or 20 years, but he's talking about the soft bigotry of low expectations on the left, and you see it everywhere you look, right? This idea like, we have to save them from themselves. They're not smart enough to figure it out. They're not, they don't have the things that we have, like the internet. And it's ridiculous, the idea that it's black people can't go get IDs. Like, come the fuck on, man. Like, it is not racist to ask for ID when you vote. That, we can't. That seems like a very common thing. I live in Canada, right? You do now too. If you go and vote, you have to show your ID. This is mostly an American thing. This idea that showing ID when you vote is racist or something. I don't even know where they come up with that, but that's what left-wing media tells people, and they believe it.
I just love the fact that by saying that it's racist, they're so fucking racist by assuming that black people are stupid, that they're dumb. They don't have access to the same things as you and I would. This is what I love. To have a bunch of white people tell black people, you know what? You're so fucking retarded, but it's okay. I will help you out.
Yeah, it's exactly
because
what
of me.
Is, right?
The white person will. Don't worry.
Yeah, the whites are here for the rescue.
Yeah.
The whites are here to save the day again. Here come the whites.
You're welcome, by the way, black friends. You're welcome.
That's exactly what it. But you don't have to. I don't even need to be thanked. I just do it because I'm out of the goodness of my heart. But that's exactly what it is. That's like, and there's a lot of like black people who really start to sniff this out, and I think they resent it. This sort of attitude among a lot of liberals and left-leaning people.
Do we take a few of the comments? I really need to go to the bathroom, and then I have another video to show you how. Did you see the video about Pierre Poilievre? How the liberals released a video about how Pierre Poilievre is like Donald Trump when it comes to crowd sizes. Did you see that?
No, is it good?
Oh, bro, oh fuck! It goes along the same veins as what we're talking about right now.
All right, cool.
But I'll be right back.
All right. Prairie says, no, we don't even get the CBC. You need cable to watch it here, and I cut that cord. Here you go. Yeah, a lot of people like I don't have cable anymore. I think I don't know many people do. Like my parents, my girlfriend's parents, same age group. But Yeah, most people don't really watch, news and the traditional things anymore. That's why it's a little silly when you hear them, say like, oh, the rural people, they need the CBC because as they'll be shut out of society if they don't have it. Like most people have the internet. Most people, choose not to have TV. They watch the same shows. They have social media. They're just as connected. It's sort of a it doesn't really ring true to me. And I think I think that's where the CBC really sort of they made some fatal mistakes, because at the end of the day, whether they are actually biased or not is kind of beside the point at this point, because the perception is that they are. The perception among the right is that the CBC is biased. I believe that they probably are, and if that's at some point perception becomes reality, and the CBC should have made it an absolute priority to not let that perception creep in, and they didn't do that. And so whatever problems they face, if they get defunded, they have nobody to blame but themselves.
And I just got our stream on TikTok taken down again.
Why? What happened there?
Let's see what they say.
Bad mouth live CBC.
It was during that part. So what are they saying? I have no idea. It's probably because I said words like the blacks, and so they took it out of context, as in we're not saying that. But either way, I'm just gonna appeal it, and we'll see. The last three has been retaken right away, but
pretty quickly.
I just wanted to say one thing. When I was in the bathroom, I still have my headphones, right? Yep. And you mentioned that your girlfriend's parents were about the same age as yours. Fucking liar! You're probably closer to their age.
No, actually. So my girlfriend's
because I know you date like 18 or 20-year-olds.
No, that's not that young.
It's just as I'm peeing, I almost missed the toilet.
Yeah. No, she's 10 years younger than me, but surprisingly, our parents are about the same age. Her parents were like 40 when they had her, and my mom.
Oh shit!
Fuck.
That means I'm so happy I'm having a son that my daughter's not going to be dating a fucking 40-year-old.
And my mom had me when she was I think 23 or something. But yeah, it's funny. She was actually saying that. She's like, she was like, it'd probably be a little weirder if you and my parents were around the same age. But she's like, thankfully that we both have parents around the same age, so it works out well. But it's funny because we actually had this discussion because I was over visiting her because she lives in Halifax, which is about 4 hours away from me, I was shooting the shit with her dad, and she was talking about the CBC because they're staunch liberals too. And he's like, "Oh yeah, Carney, he wants to support the CBC as if it's a great thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool." I was like, what, what do you think? What do you think? It's your girlfriend's parents, so you want to tread a little lightly.
I feel like I'm not.
Shit. I know you're not like that. You're not like that. No, yeah.
We're married. Fuck this shit.
Yeah,
they know what
I'm stomping around. Yeah, there's no tread lightly with you. But
nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
But no, it was it was funny. And she's kind of saying, she's like, do you think that government should be funding media? And of course, her parents like, oh yeah. I was like, really? I was like, yeah. Well, I guess I was like, maybe they should just be careful not to be too partisan. And they at least agreed with me on that. So
at least sell us if you're gonna take so much of our fucking money, at least try to convince us that you're not biased. At least try. But they're not trying. It's not even.
They really should have put they should have had a lot of meetings and been like, all right, guys, we get a lot of our funding from the Canadian public. We cannot under no circumstance can it seem like we're biased against any one party. That to me would seem like a self-preservation move, right? At some point, because liberals are not going to be in power forever, and the other party is going to take exception to that if you continuously try to or at least give the perception that you're going to boost the other party, people, they're not going to like that. And when they control the purse strings, you might find yourself getting severely cut.
And again, this is always the irony of this all. At least at least play with my balls a bit and try to convince me.
Yeah,
At least
exactly.
if you
Lie to me, right? Lie to me.
at least
like,
if you're taking my money, make it pleasant to take my money.
yeah. Don't just fucking piss down my back and tell me it's raining. You know, like make sure that
It's a warm rain too.
yeah. Yeah. Ooh, it's so warm.
It's so comfy.
Yeah.
So here's a video that it's hard for me to believe that the liberals are releasing videos like this. Like it kind of blows my mind. But it's basically saying how Pierre Poilievre, just like Trump, is obsessed with crowd sizes. You remember that? Like he was always bragging and bragging. But technically, was he really bragging? Because it was true. Like he was destroying Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's crowd sizes. And if you've been paying attention to the past few weeks, Pierre Poilievre in his rallies is you have a bunch of decrepit, like 200 people showing up. It seems like for Carney, they're all they disconnect from CBC long enough to make it there and back. But you look at Pierre Poilievre, it's fucking massive compared to Carney. But here's a video that they released, which I thought is just so childish. But hey, it's the liberals.
Right, let's see.
How did you like our rally yesterday?
Did you see it? The place was packed.
Very big. How many people do you think were there?
I mean, the one we had today, you missed a beauty.
When was the last time you had that in Kingston?
There's a record crowd. They've never had a crowd like that in the history of this place.
That was nice of them in this rain.
It was almost raining.
It was a rough night to drive in.
The rain should have scared them away, but God looked down.
Did John A. MacDonald have crowds like that when he was the MP here?
I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times.
He may have had a few crowds around City Hall back in the day.
I mean, it's funny because I don't think there's any doubt that Poilievre is having like some pretty big crowds, right? Like they're trying to portray it like, especially I remember the very first time that Trump was elected in 2016, he definitely was making some probably exaggerated claims about his crowd size.
Trump saying exaggeration? No. Trump would never exaggerate on anything. What are you talking about?
But this last one here, certainly compared to Kamala, those were legitimate crowds. But again, with Poilievre, like, I don't think there's anyone doubting that those are real crowds. Like he's getting real numbers, and it is pretty funny for them to like imply that it's fake, because even left-wing media, I don't think anyone's denying that those are real crowd numbers.
But it's funnier than that. It's just I don't know that they're trying to disprove the size of the crowds as much as trying to compare him to Trump. This is what I think they're doing. But what's funny is that Trump is not only did Trump not endorse Pierre Poilievre, but he kind of took shots at him a couple of weeks ago and said that he would much rather a liberal government. So I'm just saying, if somebody's endorsing somebody, if Trump's endorsing someone, he's endorsing Carney.
Yeah.
He didn't endorse Pierre Poilievre. And, before we go even further, I found something else, another video that shows the actual hypocrisy of this all, because, again, Trump has not. Oh shit! Did I download it? You know what? Take some comments. I think I have it somewhere.
So Tony's talking about Pierre Poilievre. He said Pierre's doing a rally tonight just up the road from my house. Nobody's paying me to go. Let us know tomorrow how that goes, Tony. Let us know what the vibe is like, and just sort of your vibe on or your opinion on sort of how people are feeling about all this, because it does seem like he's getting, as Perry says, there's a lot of people showing up for Pierre Poilievre. I mean, I'm out in New Brunswick. He was here in Fredericton last week, and he got a lot of supporters. And this is traditionally a liberal hot spot. Same as out in PEI. He went there the next day. He got a lot of people there. Certainly more so than conservative leaders typically do. So it does make you wonder. Is it the same thing going on that has been the trend in the States, where it's been Donald Trump specifically, but conservative politicians tend to outperform their polls. Now, if there's I've heard a few theories about why that might be. One is that, and this is a true thing, it sounds almost goofy, but like people of a certain age, a lot of people, say 45 and younger, do not answer their phones, and certainly not if they don't know the number. And these are who is making these calls. But people who do answer the phones, I know my mother, she answers every single fucking phone call that comes in, and it's
she a bit lonely.
Well, no, it's just the culture. It's just you grew up where, like, yeah, and I know you're just busting balls, but it's the same. Yeah, I know that, but it is the culture. People 60 and older, they answer their phone. And people who grew up in the sort of internet era, you don't. You might check the messages later, and you're not going to call a pollster back. But if you don't know that number, a lot of people just aren't calling, right? And so there are certainly some plausible scenarios that could explain why that is the case. That why conservative parties tend to outperform their polls. Now, I don't know if that's the case. That's certainly been the case with Donald Trump. This will be an interesting test case to see if this is in fact a just a modern phenomenon, or if it was specifically for Donald Trump. But what I'm looking at here, what's the date? The 7th of April. So we got 21 days, 3 weeks exactly. So we'll find out soon enough.
I think I found the video right here. It was posted this morning by a conservative complaining about Pierre Poilievre because of his stance on Trump, which I don't understand. Pierre Poilievre, this is one of the many things I really disagree with him, is his stance on what Trump is doing and what he stands for. Yep. But this just goes to show how hypocritical the message is coming out of the Liberal Party right now. So it's almost like they're making it sound like the CBC is somehow controlled by a small group with a interesting ideology, almost making it sound like it's a conservative and not themselves that's been controlling the CBC, at least for the past 5 to 8 years. That somehow Pierre Poilievre, because he talks about his big rallies, is somehow like Trump, yet Trump made fun of him a couple of weeks ago and kind of said that he wants to deal with a Liberal Party. And now you have a video that got released this weekend where Pierre Poilievre is answering a reporter about his stance on Trump. And I believe it's this one. Hopefully it is. Okay. But he goes even deeper on how wrong Trump is. So it's very interesting the route that the Liberals are taking right now to try to discredit Trump. So basically, there's 60-year-old people that are voting for them. They're kind of using the fact that they probably don't do a lot of research on the internets.
Relies heavily on tourism and cross-border commerce, which is being strangled by the United States. There are some voters who are concerned that the party and campaign are too reminiscent of the current American government. America first, Canada first, calls to cut public broadcasters with NPR, PBS versus CBC, eliminations of government regulations in sweeping manner. Even Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has said that the Conservative Party leadership is in sync in direction with Trump and America. How do you address the concerns of being too closely aligned to a foreign government that is threatening Canada and is destroying its own country right now?
Well, your question is false. Mr. Trump has endorsed the Liberals. He said it will be easier for him if the Liberals stay in power. He said it multiple times. He said that he doesn't agree with me, he doesn't support me, and he doesn't want me to be Prime Minister of Canada. I think a lot of people have to ask themselves, why does Donald Trump want the Liberals in power for a 4th term? The answer is clear. He wants Canada to be weak. And after the lost Liberal decade, with costs and crime up and our economy down under America's thumb, we are more vulnerable and dependent than ever before. And that's why we can't give them a 4th term. What we need is a government that's going to put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, unleashing our resources to bring home the $500 billion the Americans have stolen from us under the last years of the Liberals. It's time for a strong Canadian leader. A strong Conservative rather than a weak Liberal is exactly what this country needs, even if
It's interesting. He is not a very good speaker. Right? He's really not good at answering questions that just came to him
Yeah,
That
he's
seems
not.
to
He's
be
not
live.
good on.
I'm assuming that was a live question because it was a valid question because
Yeah.
I don't see the correlation between the two. They're completely different, but I can see why some Canadians that don't follow American politics the way I do could be convinced by the CBC and Mark Carney that Pierre Poilievre and Trump are very much the same, which they're definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what he was talking about, like cutting regulations. I mean, that's a pretty standard conservative thing, no matter what party you're in. So it seems a bit silly. It was kind of funny the way he ended the question was like, "Why would you want to do that when Trump, President Trump is destroying his own country?" Like that's a pretty opinionated statement for a media figure. Like it may be your opinion Trump is destroying America, but there's obviously a lot of people who do not share that opinion, and it's a really weird way to frame that as if like it's a given that that's what he's doing. I think it sort of shows a very unprofessional bias just right there. But I mean, the things he said was pretty superficial. Like, oh, well, they wanted to fund NPR, and conservatives here wanted to fund CBC. Well, yeah, but that's because the reasons why each country does is the exact same. Both conservatives in both countries perceive their government-funded news source as being liberal. Now, is that perception all in their heads? And you could make the case that it is, but in my opinion, that is on the NPR and the CBC because they should have gone out of their way to make sure. I mean, at the end of the day, conservatives, if they genuinely believed that these things, these media sources were nonpartisan, they probably wouldn't be upset, right? So even if that's a misperception on their part, what have you done to correct that misperception? Because I see it as a liberal on the left, just an objective observer, it's pretty clear to me that yes, of course, these are left-wing centric. Maybe you could even say maybe they're trying to. I mean, I don't think they're trying nearly hard enough. They accept as face value some things that if you ever see them talk about, say, trans issues, they accept that trans women are women. And that's just a fundamentally far left position. So if you start your reporting with just accepting that as fact, right away, I know you're biased. So, I mean, you see it all the time, and it's really hard to make the case that they are not biased. And the fact that so many liberals are supportive of them and so many conservatives are opposed to them is pretty clear evidence that there is a bias going on. So it's a bit weird to the way they frame the question is, oh, you're just doing this because they're doing it down the states. Well, no, it's not really correct. The fact is that the forces at work, the reasons why conservatives in the states oppose the NPR are the exact same. That's the same reasons why conservatives in Canada are opposed to the CBC. And I think the same was, what was the other point that he brought up? We brought up cutting regulations. Well, that's pretty standard conservative.
Cutting taxes. He brought up cutting taxes.
Yeah, again, pretty standard right-wing positions.
It's just what I find interesting is not the question, is mostly how terrible at responding to a question Poilievre is.
He's not very good,
because this was a given to me. If you asked me that question, oh, bro, I would have ripped into that reporter. Like that reporter would have sat down with his a la Doug Ford with his tail. Do you remember when he talked about putting tariffs on Americans? And
yes,
he was like a whipped dog by the end of the day. Yeah, that's how that reporter would never dare ask me another question, because at the end of the day, it's common sense. No, you tell me NPR. Okay, sure, NPR receives a few percent of their budget from the government. The CBC receives 75% of their annual budget is funded by federal governments. So don't give me the shit. You can't even compare this to the NBA. Like, he had the perfect opportunity to make his point about the CBC, why you need to defund the CBC. Plus, if let's say that half of your country is conservative, which the poll seems to indicate that it's pretty somewhere in the middle. Half of the people believe in Pierre Poilievre, half of the people believe in liberal.
Yep.
Even if the Liberals win, they should defund the CBC just because you know now that half of your population believes that the CBC is left-leaning. So why are you not doing something about it? This has nothing to do with party affiliation. This has all to do with the people. It's taxpayers' money that's being used. And if half the people are saying, fuck you, we don't want to fund this, who the fuck are you to say we continue? He had the perfect opportunity to just destroy that reporter. And, you know, there's such a thing as false equivalency. Because Trump is doing something that you agree with, doesn't mean you agree with Trump. It just means that in this case, Trump is right. But that doesn't mean you support him. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, he had the perfect opportunity to just destroy that reporter, but he's not a very witty individual. Like, he doesn't seem very good to quickly. Carney's the same. Like, as soon as you push Carney, he's going to ask you to look within yourself for an answer. Like,
look within yourself, Brenda, or whatever the fuck her name was. Yeah, that was funny.
We're running out of time, but I wanted to show your video though, because I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
So do we take the 5 minutes to watch this video?
Yeah, we'll take 5.
And, you know, just to answer, Prairie is asking if today's the last day for the people that want to run for their signature. Yeah, it is. It seems like it is 2:00 this afternoon. So basically, it just finished like 15 minutes ago. Was the last time to pick up for candidates.
Oh no!
Pick up their last signature.
You're not going to be a PPC candidate. Was that actually? Are you joking around, or was that actually an actual
she's
thing?
saying I don't think I'm going to get a PPC candidate.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant. Yeah, I thought you were saying I'm not going to get to be a PPC candidate. I was like, are we actually going to? Okay, so
I was going to say maybe you should have been out there,
knocking
looking for signatures instead of staying with us. But we appreciate it.
We definitely appreciate it.
I'm not saying you should be here.
Yeah, So this video is John Oliver, and a couple years ago, I used to like this guy. Maybe more than a couple, maybe 5 or 6 or 7. He seemed like he was pretty bang on some of the issues, I believe, but now I just think he's a blowhard. And he, you know, it's I don't know where, like, even if you're on the left and you believe in a lot of this trans stuff, you believe that men should be allowed in women's sports, like, you got to read the room a little. Like, the tide is shifting dramatically. This is one of the main reasons Kamala lost. And it boggles my mind that he would go out of his way to do a whole segment on his show on HBO over the weekend. He did a whole segment on just nonsense, like stuff we all know is nonsense. Why he's saying, oh, it's not, there's no evidence that men and boys are faster and stronger and have an athletic advantage over women and girls. It's like, really? No evidence? Like, were you literally born yesterday? Anybody who's played any sport or played on a playground understands that there's a clear advantage, and men are on average stronger than women. But so that's what Nico's gonna play here, just to talk a little bit about how absurd this whole thing is.
And I finally did not get my appeal was denied for TikTok, so I'm suspended for a week.
Oh, really?
For hate speech, yeah.
What? For saying that it's not racist to
they don't tell you what the actual thing is.
Oh, that's so ridiculous.
But they're basically telling me that I should take a related tutorial in order.
Oh my God.
I'm just gonna stop. We should just stop. I'm just gonna stop putting them out there. It's either way.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Let's go to a place where John Oliver has a massive audience.
Yeah.
TikTok. And this will never get you in trouble to say this, right? I haven't seen the video, but I'm assuming that
you already know. You already know what he's saying.
Explaining what we do and don't know at this point. It is undoubtedly true that trans women will maintain advantages in some sports. Probably not so much in endurance sports, but in size and strength sports. Trans women will also have some physiological disadvantages. Our larger frames are now being powered by reduced muscle mass and reduced aerobic capacity, and that can lead to disadvantages in terms like quickness, recovery, endurance.
Disadvantages to be a man.
Obvious as
this is a man, by the way.
Of course it is.
Bigger and stronger bodies are not automatically advantaged in every scenario. I mean, put The Rock in a pure bar class and see what happens. I mean,
We know what would happen. He'd take a video of himself, caption it, "Mad respect to these mamas, everyone go see Moana 2, and try to use it to sell his tequila before eating 13,000 pancakes and drinking a cow. We know what would happen. But the degree of difference here matters, because we expect a certain amount of difference in athletics. Taller basketball players are expected to compete against shorter ones. Faster soccer players compete against slower ones. Michael Phelps was allowed to compete with other swimmers despite being part dolphin. And crucially, none of the studies I've mentioned so far bear much relevance to what these new laws target, which is youth sports, usually of all ages. And the research there is even more scant. We have no research about how being trans or undergoing gender-affirming treatment impacts athletic performance in teens. And when it comes to kids before the onset of puberty, I could talk about the studies showing the subtle performance differences between boys and girls, but I'd argue when you're talking about 7-year-olds, as a practical matter, that's a point where lots of school sports are co-ed anyway, and a key difference between competitors on a field can come down to whether a kid was born in October or April. And at this point, you might be saying, well, I don't need to wait for scientific research. This is all common sense, and I know what I've seen online. But a lot of what you've seen may not be quite what you think it is, both when it comes to trans athletes' impact on competition or safety.
You know, as a guy that's competed for, probably 25 years of my life-ish, in some time, let's call it 20 years.
Okay.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I know, right?
Are you kidding me? Like, he's talking about Michael Phelps. You know what? I was just talking about this yesterday. How if you look at the body of a man for swimming, God created him perfect. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking against men. Yeah. We have mediocre men that are not even. Leah Thomas wasn't even top 200 in the fucking NCAA.
Like 400.
He joins the women. He's schooling them.
He's number one.
Like he's just destroying women left, right, and center. And he sucked. He sucked as a dude. Imagine if you had a Michael Phelps competing against Riley Gaines. You're talking top of the top. Fuck, what's her name? The tennis player, the best tennis player of all
Serena
time.
Williams.
Serena Williams. That's saying, "Oh no, I won't even play the top."
She said that. Yeah.
200. Oh, and she has no shame in saying, and she's built like a dude. Look at the shape of Serena Williams when she was competing. That dude looked like she was on steroids. Like, what a genetic freak that woman is. Yeah, and this is a compliment, right? She is in phenomenal shape. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to compete against men. Like, are you kidding me? You have top tier athletes in the Riley Gaines and the Serena Williams that were the best in their sport. They're literally telling you,
and they're getting
cannot compete. You got a little fat ass like Oliver that's never pushed weight, that's never trained a day in his fucking life. There's no difference between men and women.
It's so ridiculous.
Are you fucking kidding?
We need to wait for the research.
Bro, the research has been done. It's just you keep on saying dumb shit and people believe you. Like endurance. Oh, it doesn't play a big role in endurance. So why is it that men competing with women on the marathons, like 30 minutes different? We're not talking beating by a few seconds here. Yeah. We're talking as in, I have time to go take a dump, eat, smoke a cigarette, and then maybe they're going to show up. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you kidding me?
It's wild,
fucking
man.
Idiots.
Always
from people that don't compete. This is what blows my mind. You got the professional female athletes at the top of their game saying that, bro, I'm not even doing that. I can't do that. I'm not going to compete with a subpar guy. But you have little fatties with their dad bods telling there's no different. You know what? Serena Williams will kick your ass in any sport that you want. That's true. 100%. Oliver, that's never done anything competitively when it comes to sport in his life, would she dominate him? Oh, yeah. If you were the one putting a skirt on, would it matter? No, because you fucking suck in the first place. But if you're talking about an athlete versus an athlete, bro, like, bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
I mean, you basically said it all. It's funny because he's basically saying, don't believe your lying eyes. You know, don't believe every single fucking experience you've ever had in your life. Believe me, the fucking idiot on TV who's telling you, like, we don't need to pretend we all became stupid in the last 5 minutes. We all know that, yes, of course, there are, if you take an elite athlete, female athlete versus an average dude, of course she'll dust them. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an elite female athlete versus somewhat of an elite male athlete. Like Leah Thomas back when he was William Thomas. Of course, he wasn't elite. He was ranked 445th in the country. However, he was still elite enough to go to university and be on the NCAA swimming team. That's still an elite athlete, right?
A lot faster than me, I can tell you that.
absolutely, right? So, and then he becomes a woman, and all of a sudden he's number one in the country, right? Like, it's a joke. It's a joke to pretend like we don't know the science. Like, the science is out there if these idiots want to believe it. And I don't understand why. Like, I get why a couple of years ago, maybe guys like John Oliver might have felt they had the need to support this stuff. But now, like, the tide is turning. People are really waking up. There's no need to go out of your way to do this big old speech like, that's just a clip. There was like a half-hour speech, a half-hour rant about how, you know, men belong in women's sports, and it's just nonsense.
I appreciate you just having a 2-minute video. I really appreciate this, because I couldn't have gone 30 minutes of him talking this type of crap. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, once I didn't even watch the whole thing either. When I said it to you, you were like, I know this guy's like, I know. You already knew what it was going to be, right?
Yeah.
Prairie says there was a women's fencing competition, and one of those trannies stepped
I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that too. She refused and took a knee. They disqualified her. Yeah, and you know, the optics were terrible. She took a knee, and then this fat fuck walks up in front of her face, and he's wagging his finger at her, and then the referee comes over and says, "Oh, you're disqualified." And she's just a woman who wants fair play, right? What is wrong with that? What does it come to when, you know, we're here supporting the men who want, these mediocre men who want access to women's spaces just because they can't compete with the other men? It's nonsense.
So just to put it into perspective, just to make sure that you probably have time for a dump and a smoke. The fastest time is 2 hours, 35 seconds for a marathon by a man, 2 hours, 9 minutes, 50 seconds for a woman. So there's almost 10 minutes difference. That's between the two top athletes in the world. The average, though, is somewhere around the average, as per Very Well Fit. The average man runs 4 hours and 30 minutes. Hey, man, when you think that the fastest guy on the planet's 2 hours, the average guy's 4 hours, 30 minutes, so 250% more. And the woman is 4 hours, 56 minutes. So by me saying that a man literally does it 30 minutes faster than a woman is not false.
Yep.
Top tier athletes, they're 9 minutes. But what is 9 minutes? Like 9 minutes is a long fucking time
for that. Yeah, I guarantee you that the guy, the male who finished 100th in that marathon was probably a minute, maybe 30 seconds behind the top guy. Right? There's a whole lot of elite athletes that are men in between the top guy and the top woman.
Yeah, but you don't want to say that.
No.
You can't say that. As per Oliver Titties, whatever the fuck his last name is.
Yeah. They want.
John Oliver.
Yeah, they want to pretend like we all just became idiots in the last 5 minutes and forgot everything we know about male and female bodies.
And I love how he's comparing women dancing to The Rock. Like, what the fuck does one have to do with the other?
Exactly, right.
The Rock is like 260 pounds, 280 pounds. He's 6'4" on steroids. I don't care what he says. That dude's been
fuck yeah.
That dude is like, he's been on the sauce for a very fucking. You don't get more muscular in your 50s. Sorry, bro.
That's right. You just
naturally.
Don't. Yeah.
Naturally. Mm-hmm. But what the fuck does he have to do with judging anything? Like, women dancing, or they have an advantage over The Rock.
It's nonsense.
What the okay, so basically what you're saying is that somebody that's never competed, a man that does not compete in that same sport, women will do better than them. Well, duh. Like, sure. Trained versus untrained. Sure.
Exactly. Right.
Put two people that weigh 145 pounds on a jiu-jitsu mat where there's no hit. Just jiu-jitsu. Same experience, same belt level, and see how the guy's gonna absolutely destroy her on strength alone.
No question.
Like,
no question.
Look at fighters. Fighters are the best example. Put a dude at 135 pounds versus a woman at 135 pounds. A woman at 135 pounds, a big girl. Like she is, because she's ripped at 135 pounds. A dude at 135 pounds, a midget, is a midget. That dude is like...
And he'll dust her.
Not even close. Not even close. Not even
close. No.
And you'll see it. You'll see it on her face. You're not going to need to have interpretation. She can stand in front of the camera afterwards. You'll see it for yourself what a man does to a woman at the same weight.
Yep, that's right.
When they're trained. Obviously, that's the part they never talk about, right? Trained versus untrained. Oh, yeah, the guy that's coming off the couch that's never fought in his life.
Yeah, of course, right?
So, I know women at 125 pounds that will rip you a new one, even if you weigh 250 pounds, bro.
Yeah,
they're going to make you look silly.
Yeah.
But untrained versus trained. You're talking about two elite athletes? Hey, bro, come on.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's apples to oranges. Absolutely. All right.
I think 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Good episode, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Again, lots of audience engagement, and the show is built on audience engagement. You could have been anywhere in the world today. You chose to be here with us, and so we always appreciate that. Hopefully you guys liked the show today. If you did, please like it and share it. I think, especially if you were watching from the beginning, there was a really excellent video that I think a lot of people should see to maybe give some perspective about what's happening with the tariffs these days. I really like how that was stripped of any politics, any partisanship. You had no idea if this guy was a lefty or a righty. He was just giving us facts, and I appreciated that. There will be a rerun today at 7 p.m. Eastern time if you're around. So please like and share that one if you want to catch the video that we're talking about again. And other than that, as far as I'm concerned, we will see you tomorrow. Nico, you got anything to add?
No, good job, man. God damn, you're becoming good at closing the
Getting
show.
there. Getting there. We're getting
it's about time you participate.
Yeah.
Jesus.
About time I pulled my weight around here.
Good for you, though. That's a good outro, man. Good job.
All right. Prairie, you have a great day too. We'll check you guys tomorrow. Guys, everyone, we will see you tomorrow, and have a great night, and we'll catch you later.
Peace out.